It's like a pizza crunch without the batter. It's like the wood juice without the water. You never get the knickers off of fucking trans premeditated batter. Premeditated batter.
But so see when that happens, the cunts. Are they just no deleted what they've wrote, do you think? Or can cunts find shit you've deleted?
No, they can't find if you've deleted it. They've just left it up and forgot that fucking it's
bad to say.
Aye. Certainly. I've seen a couple of my old Facebook statuses, bro, and honestly.
Have you not went back through your Facebook? I done it ages ago, mate. I've seen some wild shit.
Aye, I know.
I can't even get into my Facebook now. I don't know why, mate.
No, you need access to that, mate.
Oh, but you looked at it?
I think so, mate. Aye. So I'm a bit
the account and get it done, innit?
I know. You always see like I always see football players on Twitter and that they do a mad thing. It's like there must be an app that deletes all your tweets.
All right,
it's called like delete my tweets or something. It does say it's called delete all my tweets, please. No, but and they do it and you see it comes up. It must be a thing that when you do it comes up a tweet for them saying, I used this app obviously for promos and that, but you just know you're like they've said something. I mean, they know, but there's no point in taking a chance for it either.
Mate, I like it, but see when you see like ones and it's like a football player, like you see like Johnny Hayes' old tweets and that, mate, and they're all just wild, mate. Cause like
how would it
back in like because in like 2012 when like Twitter was heavy new, football players didn't know it would get so big in that. You know what I mean? So you always see mad old things like just people being like fuck your Rangers and all that, or like fucking Fenian bastards and all that, mate. Mad football players.
Some classics, will, mate. Fucking see what comes to mind. Remember, obviously, you had the property boss on your podcast. A few his old tweets came out and cunts were heavy lambasting him. You ever get fucking? You honestly, you're not putting the sex offenders register on TikTok. The TikTok register.
They were bad, and I knew they were bad because like he was making like sit down apology like things to TikTok. I've learned for this, and I'm different now and all that, and it was just like fucking.
Yeah, I think if we didn't cut out some things for a podcast, they would have had to do a few apologies.
Oh, what, did you have to cut some shit out?
A wee bit. Like there was some things he said that was a bit like.
Well, like for your sake, we'll just pass.
Just save him the drama. Fucking didn't even work for him. Know what I mean? He ended up getting shot in his cell in the fit anyway.
I know, mate. I know because I think I don't really see him posting and all that anymore.
Mate, I was thinking about him earlier, mate. I've not seen him since. No. I don't know if I maybe, because I've had about 5 fucking TikToks, so I don't know if I've maybe just no followed him, man. Because I knew he started on that thing, because he was working at Purple Bricks, then all that shit with that Diane happened. Did you just follow that? It's a pure saga, see, on TikTok, mate, because it was all your TikTok. You couldn't go on TikTok without seeing it. See if somebody doesn't use TikTok and you say, the property boss and Diane, they're like, who?
It's a mad separate world, mate. It's like
mate, asking something about Hollyoaks or something. When you talk about
that's what that was like, mate. That was a pure soap, mate. My pals were texting me saying like because some of my pals that are mad neds, right? They don't like keep up with mad internet shit, right? So because they know I do this with Evan, they text me like geezy gossip what's been happening, you know what I mean, with that property boss and Lee Sutherland and all that. I'm like their mad reporter for that mad world, you know what I mean?
You're the inside
mate, there should be a mad TikTok news channel.
That'd be good, by the way.
Just for Scotland.
You're right, mate. Fucking edit that out, man. You've got a fucking
a suit zone in that.
And the hats.
There we go, we started that
podcast, mate.
Mate, have you seen on TikTok lately? I've heard a cunt called Paul Breach.
Aye, mate.
Oh, seen that shot? Aye. Beauty beyond the eye. So, right, I was, you know, as a case, I was following it. The thing follows me fucking everywhere you look. So I was like, right, it cunt's a weirdo. But then did you see that cunt, what was his name? Quirky? The quirky one?
Aye, the one that was like, was it the cunt that pure exposed him or something?
The Scottish cunt, I don't know if he exposed him, but he was like, everything that Paul put up, he was commenting on it. And see, this Paul was going with a 19-year-old, and he was going like the child. He kept calling her the child. And then the next video I seen, he's like, I've got something to tell you. I end up in a relationship with an 18-year-old. She was younger than the cunt that Paul was going with.
Actually,
did you not see that? No,
I didn't see this end. Mate,
mate, this cunt's been heavy. He's getting it worse than that Paul, mate. He's had to put his account in private.
Mate, he was what do you call that when it's like you're protesting too much? You know what I mean? Because he's obviously a mad weirdo. He's projecting it onto mad Paul.
But he done like the video, right? So he done this. I don't know how it came out, if maybe the lassie was seen, because he was doing video after video about this Paul. So I don't know if this lassie's seen it like, no boy, you hypocrite, and exposed him. But he put up this video going like, listen, explaining it and all that kind of shit. And then all of a sudden, he started kind of playing the victim to a degree. He's like, well, wait a minute. He's like, this is what he started doing. He started going like, let's remember who the real scumbag is.
Mad politician or something.
Not a chance. And then he started kind of acting as if like cunts were in the ring for slaughter. And he's like, context, I think people, because cunts were commenting going like, you're no worse than Paul, you're a beast, this and that. And he's like, I think people have been commenting without actually watching the video and that, as if cunts were jumping the gun and after watching the video, but oh no worries, you're a good cunt. Fucking idiot. No,
I see cunts like that. It's like see when somebody gets like murdered and then like the person who done it's pure out on the search leading it. No, it's like in it pure. We must find her.
Come into the scene of the crime.
It's like that. Remember that thing with that what was the name? Shannon Matthews, that wee lassie, and she was in the loft or something.
And it was a more?
Aye, a more, like pure. Aye, but she was alive. They were just hiding her to get. I don't even know what it was.
Aye, mate, that was a fucked up case.
Aye, and like the mom and the dad, like they both knew about it. And she was in her uncle's under a bed or something, hiding. Maybe it was something pure weird, man.
Mad fucked up. You just wonder, like, who comes up with this idea, like, listen, I've got an idea.
Aye.
Listen, shut up now. Listen to me. We'll hide her in the loft, hide her under the bed and say she's missing, we'll get some money. Like, know what I mean? Like,
how desperate do you need to be?
Fair dues is something as that idea. The fact that somebody must have went, no, that's a fucking good idea, let's do it. How does that end up? Fucking dumb cunts.
Actual planning it out.
How is that ever going to end well? Like getting up the full UK searching for a way that you've actually made hide.
I always think that about,
you're going to get caught.
Mate, I always think that about like hostage situations. When you see cunts and all that, right, I want a plane and I want this amount of money or I'm going to kill one of these cunts. When is that ever actual worth? Know what I mean?
What, the hostage?
Like a hostage in a bank and all that. Know what I mean?
Aye.
Mate,
Like
probably I would.
It's thing is, it's like, it's, you think of foresight, like, where are you going to get, right, I'll get this plane and I'll go and fly. Like, remember there was this, I don't know if this is a true story or one of these mad urban legends. You ever hear about the cunt? They said he was CIA and he said he had a bomb, but he went on a plane, hijacked a plane, and then he jumped out it.
That DC Cooper.
DB Cooper.
Aye, and it was like everybody like, aye, that's a crazy story because he was. He went up and he didn't hurt anybody and he got the money and then like jumped out the plane in a parachute.
Aye.
But then see, because nobody could find him.
Aye.
What happened was, see, because he was becoming this cool figure in the culture, like pure, DC,
He was
these
a mad
sunglasses,
legend, aye.
people, they were trying to look for him because he was being praised as a mad hero because he never hurt anybody or that. He just got money, boosted, and everybody was sound. He's become like this cool guy. And everybody started coming forward, kidding on to be him because they're like, I want to be DC Cooper. It was mental, so they couldn't catch him because people were like, it's me and it wasn't it.
I'm Spartacus.
I've been actual dust in Prison Break, you know, for the first time ever and never seen it, and he's in that. He's like a main character in that.
Who, DC Cooper?
DB Cooper.
DB Cooper. The DC
Cooper.
It's not him. It's like
character based on him.
It's like everybody says in the jail, like, we all think you're DB Cooper because of the way he got arrested and all that
reference.
And but he's like no, I'm this. He's Cooper, changed his name and that. Know what I mean?
I see.
But then when I'm not going to ruin it for people, right? But something happens to him and he goes here when you get out the money's here and tells him where the money is. So that full program's about DB Cooper's money. That mad cunt.
Oh, is it?
I
watched it up to like series 5 and I was like, right, I'm kind of getting the gist of this here. It is all about breaking out of prison. After that, it got a bit far-fetched. Like, come on, fuck, man.
Mate, after 20 episodes, I'm leaning through the wall. I was like, going to fuck, man.
It was interesting to start with, man, but it was one of the. I watched it in the jail and on, even I was like, fuck, that's not what I get.
Try to get ideas now.
Not even getting inspiration.
5 series in, like, alright, these cunts just keep getting caught. It's alright.
You thought it'd be a handbook.
I know, it's alright breaking out of jail, it's staying out of jail. You need to fucking make something but that doesn't really have the same ring to it, does it not?
Aye. You just got Bacampsies in it. Bacampsies. Set up somewhere.
You're selling the pot yourself missing, then turn up in a disguise, go looking for yourself.
Lead the charge for it.
So how's things with yourselves, man?
Good, man.
Good to have you in the Patter Pouffe.
I know, I'm feeling it, mate.
Is that what you call me now?
Funny to edit that out. So how's things with the podcast going and that?
Good, mate.
Gone well, mate, gone well. We just, towards the end of last year, it was kind of difficult for us. Our editor left us, so towards the end of the year, it was a bit, what the fuck are we going to do here, man? But we'll get Jamie editing it now. He's brilliant. No. This is the saga, mate.
Aye.
We've had 2 Joes and 2 Jamies involved with the podcast. So, I mean, it's so weird that the next person that gets involved cannot be called.
It needs to be called
Eric
or something.
Now that way we're trying to think of nicknames because we've got like Jamie and then Jamie editing. We're like, we need a nickname, but
he said that we've just to call him Producer Jamie, but I'm not doing that in my everyday life. Know what I mean? Maybe on the podcast, but I'm not going to be like, Producer Jamie, you getting a coffee?
See, that's the thing, but Joe Rogan's get Producer Jamie.
Aye, exactly.
So it's already taken.
It's good. It's good saying why I pulled that up, Jamie and shit, but no, it's gone well because he was.
We didn't know what we were like when our editor left. We were kind of in a mad fucking. We were a bit all over the place, weren't we? Like what we actually got a date, and then towards the end of the year, it was just like stronger than fucking it was before. I mean, everything just kind of worked out very well. So
like we're realising like fucking how big TikTok clips can be for it and shit.
Oh, massive.
But like TikTok clips get you more stuff than actual just putting out the podcast.
You're
know what I mean?
right, totally right. I noticed that recently, mate, because I only started kind of really focusing on the clips. Don't get me wrong, I'd maybe take a clip out and post it, but then I started going, I realised I can't mind, I fucking posted some on TikTok and I was getting like 500,000 views. I was like, what the fuck? And then that's when I realised that's what's bringing cunts to the channel, because some cunts are maybe clicking the clip, going on to the channel, subscribing, then no watching a podcast, but you're still getting the subscribers up. But it still works as well.
Having that many eyes on you, doesn't it? Can't be a bad thing.
Can it fuck, mate? Can it bad, mate? Since I've started doing it, don't get me wrong, I've been keeping consistent, because times I would fluctuate, as I say, I'd end up on it and I'd patch it for a week, I'd get to jail, then for a period of time there, like 3 months or something, I just went pure dry. I don't know, it was one of the ones I was kind of like that. I had to fall away from it because I've been doing it for I started it, so I fell away from it for a bit to kind of be like that. Right, wait a minute, I actually do enjoy
like
doing
regenerate,
it.
To
kind of just sit back and kind of like breathe, know what I mean?
It's hard, like, see, try to do it every week, man. It's like, because before we started one, if I was watching one, like, you watch the open goal, or like, you're like, fuck, it's just people sitting about talking, you know what I mean? It's just, it's the easiest thing in the world. And then you actually go into having to, like, every week, no matter what's going on in your life, you need to go up and just be like firing, know what I mean? And it's like, life doesn't even work like that, know what I mean?
Nah, does it? Fucking, I noticed that, because some days I'd get a day off, a day feeling off, and at times I'd be like, I can't be asked for this podcast today, meshing the cunt, like, you come in a day hoping to say no, and say, I'll be there, mate, like,
heavy buzzing for it, maybe look forward to it.
Like a fucking wank.
I got your wee present and all, mate, I've been buzzing for this.
Candle on it, fuck.
I hate that smell, mate. Smells like shit, mate.
Cuts up your prick, man.
Then 10 minutes of the podcast, you just, I don't know, it's just, I think it's fucking exchange of energy, man, because you just start feeling pure full of life in it.
We were talking about that the other day, like, we feel like it's not even the fact of being in a studio and doing something. I think it's just being around a mad conversation just gets you fucking, as you say, it's a transfer of energy. It just gets you buzzing for shit.
Aye, totally, man, totally. Because your podcast is the theme, because yours is a bit more light-hearted and obviously did a deep fried and that kind of thing, so it's a lot more kind of banter kind of one. And mine's is kind of like that, depending on the guest. So see if I maybe get a guest on, like, depending on what background they come from, how well I know them. Because I've had, let's see, Tarry and Boyd, don't know if you know him. Tarry and Boyd, I keep fucking saying his name, well, Tarry.
I know who you're talking about.
Well, I get him on and I could sit for hours talking to him, man, because I know him and he's just a heavy chatty guy. He's fucking really insightful. But there's some people, you know yourself, you fucking be forcing a conversation with them at times, know what I mean? And
that can actually put you after in a podcast, mate. Like, see, there's been times like we've maybe had one or two guests like back to back, and you come out and you're like, I didn't even really give a fuck about that, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? You're like, you're just doing it because people know who they are, or do you know what I mean? But it takes, for the wrong reason. It takes like daily ones to make you go, right, what do I like then? Do you know what I mean? And then just focusing on people that you're going to be like, right, I'm going to be buzzing when they come up. Like, see, when I wake up that day, I'm going to be like, I'm actually looking forward to this, rather than just doing it because you're like, it might get views or something. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, totally, man. There's you've got different reasons behind why you like each separate podcast. See, you talk about the ones you kind of buzz about. What's the particular theme? What the type of guest? What's your kind of ideal? Have you figured that out? What's the kind of route?
It's obviously it can be eating, but it's like I like a mad story. Like, we had a boy on who. We had like 2 in a row, and one about a boy who went and done a boy in my work that I met, Lee. I met him and just randomly in work, and I just got talking to him one day. We're working together, and he was just telling me all this mad shit. He went and done ayahuasca and the shit he's seen and all that. And he says in it his mom bought him like a jumper before he went away to go and do ayahuasca. He done it in Portugal. And she gave him it, and it was only like a wee £5-6 hoodie at Asda. Just wasn't expensive.
He said when he got it meant a lot.
It meant a lot because his mom gave him it, and it was a mad caring thing. So when he took it, he done the ayahuasca, and he was obviously on this trip, and he was thinking about his mom, and he was thinking about the struggle she had bringing him up, and also they were like struggling to have a baby, his mom and dad, and then they tried like hundreds of times, and then he was born on his mom's birthday, right? So it was a mad miracle sort of thing. And then he witnessed his own birth on ayahuasca, looking at it, tripping, like watching himself. And then he was like, he says he was looking at this woman who was like holding this baby, and he could feel the love that this woman had for the baby, and he like went round and he realised the baby was him, right? So like the mob was like that with the baby, obviously, and cause he realised it was him, he snapped out it, and he had the jumper, his mom's jumper like that.
Shut up.
It's mad,
How
innit?
mad's that, bro?
Fucking hell, that's mental.
And that's like somebody that's like, you might know, like, because Evan said to me, a boy from my work's coming on, and then explained this story, and I was like, mate, that'll be class. But soon it was just a boy from my work. I wasn't expecting it to be that interesting. You know what I mean? And
It's
mate,
not a good sale, is it? My cunt fella what says he'll be brilliant on the
But
podcast.
mate, I was
that's
like,
98% of people you work with. Get me on that, man.
Oh,
Mate, I'm some laugh. You hear the stories I'm
Mate,
got.
you get that, mate, I get it. I remember I got it with this cunt, mate. This cunt was off his fucking head. I was working with him. I went out today, it was like a couple of shifts agency work in Toonhead. It was like stripping out a warehouse. So you imagine he's ever done like agency labouring work.
Aye, I know.
It was
Aye,
the
aye.
pure bottom of the pile, man.
Aye,
Like the fucking scavenger cunts. So mad cunts everywhere. So I ended up working with this mad bastard. No saying he's like a mad bottom of the pile cunt, but he was nuts. It was nuts.
Somebody that would be in that group.
Aye, so when I fucking turned up, was one of mine. I just started talking to us, and he was like, talking like fuck. And and I ended up telling him I'd done a podcast, and he was like, fucking tell me his life story, how it was in the army, get packed to the army for selling drugs, he's that hung, he's selling all that shit, man, he's done time in jail, but he's telling me it's fucking pure intense. And then he says he does like MMA, but he was dragging his legs, now he's got big holes in his legs and all that. There's lights hanging for the ceiling, he's trying to spin kick the light, shit, pure ADHD, the cunt. Mate, it was there an hour. And then the gaffer turned up, like, I want to speak to you. Sacked him off the job. He apparently had been slaughtering some cunt today. I thought a wee guy turned up, his first job, like 18-year-old, and he ended up working with this cunt. The cunt ripped the piss out of him the full day.
that's the worst thing ever for that wee guy,
Too
innit?
far and all.
Aye, mate, it was like the cunt was a mad, but like I've obviously done a few years working and a few years in the jail, and I mean this cunt, I was like, he's intense. So imagine being 18, just like left school, that's your first job, and you get paired up with that cunt.
There's nothing more like
That's traumatic,
daunting than that, man. Like a mad nutter cunt. I remember when I was in the railway, a mad cunt used to like, we'd obviously, you weren't allowed your own knife for some reason, right? A mad safe thing, like it had to be theirs, like you couldn't go out and buy one and bring it in, it had to be the one they issued, so
Right.
you didn't plug cunts or something, I don't know. But
If you're going to plug cunts, plug with this knife.
use this safety man. But he would come in and he'd fucking big massive lockbacks and that. I was like, don't tell him, I can't be asked him back to the jail and all that. And I'm like, know what I mean? But he was like, can he be asked, as in like it was like fucking like being late for a bus or something. Like, I can't be fucked, man.
I can't be asked for that, man. What did you do in the railway?
I done like, so I was like doing stores work, so obviously it's all night shift.
Aye.
And it would all be like, we would get all the stuff ready, all the parts, the brackets and all that they were going to install like on like the train lines and putting
Aye.
the train lines up. So I was in during the day putting all that stuff out, but some mental characters in there, mate.
Mate, it's night shift, bro. Night shift
Aye.
attracts the maddest
Aye,
of
it
cunts.
does, mate. Somebody that can like sleep all day and be out all night.
I know, right? Aye,
I don't
no.
know if it does, if it's attracts the cunts or night shift makes you into that cunt.
Aye.
'Cause I felt it, mate.
Aye, I know what
Since
you mean,
I've started
mate.
working night shift, and I feel a bit more cuckoo.
No
Yeah,
seeing
aye.
sunlight.
Aye, mate, this fucking hat feels normal, know what I mean? It's fucking, aye, bro, but I work with students all day, I'm not going to say where, know what I mean? But I work
Don't
with
wanna do
fucking, I work with students, so it's an alright job in that kind of sense, man, but you do, mine's is right in the tune where I work, so you've got mad cunts turned up mad with trying to get in and all that shit, cunts. Mate, a mad woman, there's a cinema room right down the stair, and we were sitting, it was me and the security guy, and he was looking at the cameras, he's like, mate, some cunt fucking sleeping in that cinema room. Well, I went down, man. It was this, I think she was Iranian or Romanian. She was about 40 or something. She'd managed to get in, get by us down the stair, go into a cinema room, you need a key for it, and fell asleep on the couch.
What are we a
Yeah.
film on?
Then we tell her, listen, you need to leave. She got up and she started limping out. She had a limp. I was like, how the fuck did she... But I don't know if you get by us on like, 2 working lines, never mind one that's fucked.
Maybe she just ran past you and jumped
Aye.
and
We'll
just
see,
hurt,
but honest, mate,
sprained her
I think this
ankle.
might have been right, it was like the 28th of October, so it was Halloween weekend, it was the Friday. I could be wrong the exact date, it was the Friday before Halloween. And so the place was jumping, there was like 300 extra cunts in, cunts didn't even stay there because there was
Aye.
parties all over the place. And we were just looking at the cameras at one point, and there's like a courtyard at the back, and there's like a gate at the back, so a lot of cunts will go and let cunts in the back gate because they don't need to pass by the reception. And we seen it, mate, and it was like one of the mad zombie apocalypse films. You just seen all sorts of cunts wearing mad costumes just coming full angles, mate. It was like, what the fuck, man?
I can't think anything worse than like working night shift in the town on Halloween weekend, mate.
Mate, it was bonkers, mate. Thank fuck I was off the next night, man. It was like cunts were coming down like that. Fucking, I've been spiked. I've phoned myself an ambulance, gone sitting outside. You'd go out to see the cunt and the fire alarm would go off. You'd be running in and out.
Mate, that's
and the
hectic,
ambulance would be turning up. Like, I couldn't tell us he's been smoking ket. This mad guy said he smoked ket for an ambulance and tell us he's been spiked. Like, what? You know what I mean?
Smoking ket is wild, mate.
Mate, I think cunts are just I don't know how you would even do that. How the fuck would you smoke ket? I don't know, mate.
Ever getting that and going, no, what I'm going to do with this? Like, smoke it. That's somebody snorted it too many times. Like, I need something different.
Mate, smoke. That's what I know the worst thing about it, mate. There's fire alarms in every room. If you're able to sniff something,
I sniff it.
it's the smarter way to do it. Know what I mean?
Was it smoking out of tinfoil or something? I don't know how that would work, you know what I mean?
He denied it, mate. He was falling out of the place, waiting and all that, getting wide with cunts and all that, mate. Like, way you bag, like a moustache and all that, man. He's a weird cunt, man. Went up the stair and went to his bed, mate, and the paramedics turned up 2 hours later. I had to walk them up, and that's when they told us I'm banging the cunts over these two cunts, mate. There was a big whitey right inside his door. I'm like, I'm kidding on, I've never seen that, man. I'm not fucking cleaning that.
Fuck that.
I always like see at Halloween, see when you see the videos, and it's just like in like Sucky Hall Street, and it's like Buzz Lightyear fighting with SpongeBob and all that, mate, like every year.
See, imagine like being like a CCTV operator, like looking at Glasgow on like they kind of nights, mate. You would just your job, you would work for free, wouldn't you?
Just that one night. There's like a waiting list today.
I can't put in all sorts of overtime.
Make a wishing, I think.
You just get to watch it. Oh man,
it would be some buzz, man. But how did you two meet?
Right, so this is weird because like people always think we've known each other for years, right?
Right.
How long we known each other like properly? Like
2 years.
No,
when did we start the podcast?
Like
a year and a half ago.
September, October, like last year. So no, 2021.
Aye, so I think
just there a year and a half. So
and we had only met each other about 3 months before we started that, I know.
Really?
Aye, maybe no even that, mate.
No,
like, I think I met you within the same month we started the podcast. How weird's that? So what happened is, right, Sean, you're our pal, like Sean and Ben that they like videos and shit. Aye, so they Jamie me and Jamie always like knew each other mutually through people, but never. It's like somebody you had on social media, but you never really bumped into them. But you would know who they were if you walked by them. But we'd never really spoke. And Jamie started talking to Sean, and I'm pals with Sean. So one night, like, there was a Celtic game on. Sean was like, do you want to come up and watch it? But Jamie came and I came. Right. But we sort of knew each other, so we got talking and that. And I was like, Jamie's asking about my videos and shit. And then I said, I've got this thing, like, because G4, where we film it, asked me to do a podcast. Like, I didn't really want to start one. They just said, do you fancy doing it in here? Because the videos I made and shit. So they asked me, and I told Jamie I've got this opportunity like about a podcast, but I don't know if that's like me. I don't know if I'm better just recording something and then watching it on and going, aye, that's good. Do you know what I mean? Like that mad safety net, I like not having to just blot it out and then watch an hour and a half of yourself talking shit. But he was like, that's fucking amazing, mate. You should do it. I love podcasts and all that, right? And I was pure.
I just get super charged. Heavy intense.
I've always been heavy into like podcasts, and like I used to always want to be in the radio and all that when I was a wee guy, but I've never done anything with it, obviously. And then when that came about, I had done like things like just in my room and that, like. And they're going out to actual Nabe Day. I think they're on like SoundCloud and that. I don't know.
Oh, really? But so what kind of podcast can
I? What's it called again?
The Wee Room Podcast. It was like me, my pal, my wee cousin, just recording it and just talking pure shite in my room, in my wee cousin's room. But then when this came about, like everyone was like, I'm not sure on that. So I was like, mate, you need to do it, because I'd be pure buzzing with it. And I think, mate, I was going to say as well, was there no something to do with like, because I was meant to be, we were talking with her because I was meant to be going to Vietnam.
Aye, you were asking me about Vietnam, so we kind of got talking about that time.
Because he'd been to Vietnam and I was meant to be moving there. Like
moving to Vietnam?
Aye, because I lived there and then he...
Did you live there?
I lived there for like a year, aye.
Why?
Teaching English.
Shut up, really?
Aye. Like, so I moved there, like, after I finished up in the railway, the job I was on, it was like a 4-year contract. And when I started, they were like, no, it's going to go on for years, like 10 years, they're going to go all the way up to Aberdeen and all that. And then it got to it, and they were like, there's no work anywhere. I mean, the government had like pulled the funding or something. So I was like, I started seeing these videos about teaching English abroad and all that, and I was like, fuck it, I want to go to Vietnam. So me and my bud went there, taught English for like a year and stayed there and shit.
Really?
Aye, it's mad.
You don't need to learn Vietnamese to do that?
No, so what happens is, see, when you go in the classroom, right, the English teachers there, like you'll go in the class, so English will be like, see that obviously the way like you would have French once a day or something, know what I mean? That's the way they get English, but they need to pay extra to get it.
Right.
So it's like a pure business there. It's no like a free education thing. It's like all the rich ones learn how to speak it so they can get better opportunities and shit. So when you go into a classroom, it's like a Vietnamese teaching assistant and you, so she talks to the class, as in like getting them to behave and listen to you, and then you just talk English the full time, because like you learn a language faster if you're constantly surrounded by it. So if I was speaking Vietnamese to them, they would learn it slower because they're not absorbing as much constant English. Right. Like, because obviously see if we were trying to learn Vietnamese and we were sitting here talking and that, and then we were like doing half in Vietnamese, half in English, your subconscious doesn't really absorb anything. But see how if we had to learn Vietnamese in here and you had to read it and that, you wouldn't be able to repeat it back, but it would go into a bit of your subconscious because you've been like soaking it in and shit. Aye. So they don't want you talking Vietnamese. But
I see.
So when Evan came back for Vietnam, that was like when it was me and my pal Kieran were meant to be moving there. So when I had kind of decided, so I was like, and he knows my pal Kieran and all, so we added Evan into a group chat and we were just like asking, like, because we were going out to do the exact same thing, so we were just asking like daft things and that. But then I think around the time that you were getting the podcast started, that was like done for me, because like COVID and that, they just kept pushing it back, and I was like, fuck it, I'm not doing that. Know what I mean? I just get sick of it, because it was like waiting for like a year. And then Evan said like the only thing about the podcast studio is it's in like Wishaw, and I had a job in Wishaw just that the following day, and Evan was like, I'll meet you up there and we'll talk about it. And then when we went up, it was like fucking...
we went in, because he was like, I fucking love the match set up, the mics. Like,
well, I did when I came in here. I was like, I'm going to see
that. So we went in and he was sitting down and we were looking at it on that, and I had no clue what any it was. It was a mad mixer and all that, and I didn't know what it was. But we sat down and we were just chatting, because we didn't really know each other that well, so we're just chatting about shit, and I was like, we'd basically doing a podcast now, do you know what I mean? See, like the way we're all talking now, like that's how we were talking right off the bat. And the thing I always say is, like, when I was talking to him, it was like, now you ever get somebody on this and they're talking to you and you're like, they're not even listening to me, they're just waiting to say something back. Really, they're not absorbing what you're saying, they're just like thinking about what they're going to say next. He was actually like looking at me and listening, and I was like, we could do a podcast together here. But then it was weird, because I had a guy, the other Joe, that was involved way at the start. That's my pal that I grew up with. He was meant to be editing it and that, because he worked for like Celtic TV. But then just as I was meant to start it with him, he got offered a full-time job with him. So he had to go with him, and I was like, you can't turn down like a full-time job. And then he was like, my cousin Joe can edit it, right? So Joes are just spawning into this scenario. He's like,
anybody called Joe can edit. I've learned that.
Any Joes out there, man? Get your help tools in.
But then he was like, mate, my cousin will date, man. He's won like mad youth film festival awards and all that. And I was like, 100% get him on.
He was doing like film at uni, but then he'd patched that because he wanted to do sound production. So I was like, that's like a part-time job, near enough. But I wasn't even going to be involved with it. I was like, I'll just like, obviously if you ever need a horn wet,
you were saying you're going to be the bouncer, mate?
I was going to be,
I just
got a bit rowdy.
No, but then Evan was like, I just bounce on the first one with, so it's not just him talking to the camera kind of thing. And then even after that, I think I was still only going to come on like sometimes.
You were like, because he was like, I don't know, not because Jamie obviously had never done like I didn't do a podcast, but obviously I done like videos, sketches and shit. And, I had kind of done, people would sort of know who I was to an extent, but Jamie was obviously like unknown to that, really, do you know what I mean? So he's like, no, I don't think so and all that.
I wasn't up for it,
But it was because like the first one, I was like, I don't know what this is going to be like, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'll be the first guest, basically, you know what I mean? You just ask me shit that I would ask a guest, and it lets people know about me before they start watching my podcast and all.
I was actually thinking about this all day. I think the reason that it ended up working heavy well was because I like deep fried. Because like we came up with that, like the deep fried thing, and I was like, that's the kind of shit I'm heavy into, like mad weird shit and that. And I didn't really know Evan was the same. Like he was into mad wild conspiracy theories and all that, and just watching all this mad shit. So when we both kind of done that, I was like, oh no, this is class. And I felt like that was like a mad. That was what I would have wanted if I was doing my own thing. Know what I mean? So it kind of worked well. I was thinking about that the other day.
But It was mad how it all started, man.
It was like mad coincidences.
That's crazy, isn't it, man? I believe in sometimes things like that meant to happen.
It is weird.
Cross paths and shit.
It is weird, man. Just especially how, like, even the boy I was initially meant to date with got a full-time job right about that time, and then all of a sudden Jamie's cousin could do it. Like, the amount of people that I know that could do that is, like, after Joe was, like, zero, mate. So if for him to go like, he'll do it, I'm like, like, it's just weird how it all fell into place.
Sometimes I feel when it starts falling into place, that's when you're like, right, this is meant to happen. This is meant to happen. This is meant to be as such. But I was going to ask you that, Jamie, because you've never done anything like this before. How do you feel? Do you feel you've settled into it now?
Mate, I enjoy it now, mate. I'm right into this life.
It's a buzz, isn't it?
Mate, it's the best, mate. I heavy enjoy it. Even like daft shit, like making videos and all that. Like, I've just started doing wee daft things, and just being like confident enough to do it all, because like obviously like where we are fae, like, it's like I'm mad slagging as soon as you put yourself out for it. So I just thought that was like the norm until we started doing this, and it was like, no, you can just do what you want, and if you enjoy it, you enjoy it.
That's exactly it. And you find as well, see the cunts you think to yourself, oh, they'll rip fucking the piss at me for this. They're the ones that are like, this is fucking dynamite.
I know, mate. You're actually right. Like, even when we put my videos up, it was, I always thought like everybody where I'm fae would be like everybody that knew me that didn't know me for that would be like, oh no, man, fuck's sake. But like a lot of them are like, they like it and they listen to the podcast and that. Do you know what I mean? So it's different, but.
It's really good, man, because you've got a lot of listeners, you've got a lot of viewers in that. Because when did you actually start? Because you said you recorded the first one you recorded. Is that the first one you put out?
We went up.
Did you do a few test ones?
We done one. We done like a half one, but it was like, I think we went up. I can't really remember exactly. We went up. And then we met, and so we did in Wishaw. So there's like a Tim Hortons in Motherwell, sort of just before you get into Wishaw. Right. And I was like, we'll meet there on that couple of hours before it and plan it out and all that. I mean, like business meeting. Pure meeting before it and all that. Tim Hortons, mate. I mean, it was like
coffee, please.
It was like 1 p.m. on like a Saturday or a Friday or something. And it was just mad, like Wayne's in their mall walking a bit, and we've got laptops out and all that. Pure, let's go through this and that. But that's the first time I'd met Joe the day that we were recording the first episode. So we went up and I was talking to Joe and we're talking about it, and let's go over what we're going to do. So I think I'm going to talk about this and tell this story and wait to hear this story, mate, and blah blah blah. So
and I'm saying like I'm going to ask this question and this question.
Oh, so you're having meticulously planned it out the question.
So we're like, oh, this is good preparation. So we go up and then we're like that, starting it, and it felt heavy robotic because we pure knew everything that was coming. It's pure like having to like, react to a story that you've just heard that in kid on you're hearing it for the first time. There's nothing worse than
murder.
Even just having like the first time having like a camera and a light put on in front of you, I think it's pure daunting. Like the first time that happened, I actually just turned around and I was like actual so nervous, bro. But I think we ended up, was it the same day we got our act together?
No, so we done it right, and we're like, it was so like stiff, mate. It was pure, and how are you, Jamie, and all that. It was so bad, bro. And then halfway through it, I'm like, mate, this is shite, innit? And all that. So we got up and we're pure like, what should we do? And Joe was like, I've got a weed pen in there, man. Well, fucking get it out, eases a bit, know what I mean? And we all smoked it, we sat down and done the first episode. It was sound, mate. So I don't know if that ended up a bad crutch for us, like we need to get baked before we do it. But we've done a lot, obviously done a lot that we are not baked in, but just because that pure settled us, well, like, maybe that's the magic juice, man.
Social lubricant, innit?
That's exactly it. It works for some people, as I say. Don't get me wrong, when I done the podcast with Spexy, I don't know if it was maybe because I was like, right, I'll wait until after it, because times I end up heavy cabbages doing it, but that time I smoked it with him and I just get a pure laugh.
Mate, but see Spexy, like, we had to have one of that, he's like, see when you're cabbaged, he's the perfect one to have, because he's like he never stopped, like there's no a bit he's like, what were we talking about there? No, I mean, he's always like, so fucking, and I went down there and I went there and fucking know what I want to do, bro. Like he's a good cunt to keep you like, fuck, I better stay in this.
Of course, man. And it's sometimes it does take, you need cunts like that, but sometimes I'm looking at cunts like heavy puffers and they're talking and you ask them a question like that and they just answer it and I'm like, how do you do that? Somebody asks me a question, I'm like, what?
You consider things now.
I'm sitting thinking about something else and I don't even hear them and shit like that, mate. I'm just away with the fucking fairies.
That can happen, but because see, I know what we're talking about. Like, going up and doing an episode pure stiff. There was one, right, we've released it on our Patreon. It was an episode we went up, right, I don't know what we were smoking, mate, but it actual fucking...
I think it was that Ket. It would have been
I guess we bought it off that guy, so we're smoking Ket outside the studio. Came back in, mate, and I swear that now that we were like that, we'll get a heavy laugh, bro. Too funny and that, baked and that, bro. So we're sitting pure like that, and like we start it, and I think like Joe had the headphones on so he could hear the audio, but we couldn't. And we're like trying to do like an ad for like G4 at the start. We're pure, if you need to claim, then you can just claim with G4. And Joe done that. Here, you like, but then we started, and then Joe done that. User heavy slurring.
No,
right?
we done like 10 minutes, right?
And I thought we were pure fighting. I was like, we're on fire, Jamie boy, and that. And then fucking he's like, user pure slurring, by the way. And I was like, are we? And it pure fucked us up, know what I mean? Because we were bait. So after it, we couldn't get started again. And it was like so, every time we'd start it, it was something pure stupid. It would be like, it was like we were watching ourselves outside our bodies doing a podcast. Almost.
That pure psychedelic experience.
But you can watch that on our, like, we've released that on Patreon just unedited, so you get bits, and it's like, I think I said something like, is it something like that? Like I said, is it something like that? Because I was a wee bit like fucking baked. I was like, is it something like that? And Joseph just started pure laughing. But it wasn't even that bad. But I think because he was baked, he was pure looking into every wee detail. You know what I mean?
I think he's up pure flying the wall heavy, like getting some buzz.
And I think when we started, we weren't even bad. Like, see, watching it back, but he's baked as well, and he's like, something's wrong with this. So he's like, you need to stop that. We're like, what? And then obviously he knocked us off that track, and then it's just us trying to like. Right, so Jamie, like, what's been happening? And see, the more you get caught in that loop, the harder it is to get out it, man.
Aye, defo. See, plus as well, see somebody says you're heavy slurring, you're like, I'm heavy slurring. You start thinking everything you say, am I slurring?
If you're listening to all your words and that, aye, it's fucking
but
bad.
The worst thing is, like, see when you need to do a cut, right? Say you say something heavy bad, right? You say something heavy racist or something, like, you know, and you need to do it. So see when you need to do a cut, you need to go, so anyway, I was saying, and it feels pure like unnatural, mate. I hate that. That's my least favourite thing.
You just need to kind of find your way back into it and then act as if you never said it in the first place.
Exactly.
It's fucking madness. So that was that a Deep Fried episode, the very first one that came out?
No, Deep Fried was like maybe the fifth one or something.
So that was a bit further. That's when I actually got its name.
That's because we came up with that. We've always wanted. We were like, do we just do episodes that are about shit that we want to talk about? Like, I think I found this documentary on YouTube that's like Shadowban, mate, right? You can't find it unless somebody links you, or you type it in like word for word, or like you need to go on the channel's page and scroll through all the videos. Like if you search it, it doesn't come up, right? And it's about the earth being hollow, right? So like see like the earth is like a fucking like a globe, like a sphere. It's no flat obviously, but people are like, the way we understand the earth is like inside it's just rock and like fucking
lava and
shit. But people say like there's mad caves you can go down and just keep going, and it takes you inside earth, and there's like another bit like we can inhabit inside the earth, and like giants live there and that, right? So I remember I was bait watching this video like, oof, bro. You know what I mean? And it was about like this guy called Richard Admiral Byrd, and he was like the top. He got like the Medal of Honor in the US. He was like a mad army guy, like top, and he went on expeditions to like Antarctica and shit, didn't he?
And so he went on to Antarctica, and he got to a point that the climate changed.
He said that he had a journal, and he says that he got past the snow and he got to a bit and it was lush greenery and sunshine and all that, and it was like warm, and the people that inhabited it were pure different, and people think there's a mad hole, like a mad
that's where you enter through that.
You go up there, and then you can go through it, and then you're in a mad different bit of the earth. So I've seen this video and I was like, how mad would it be, like just talking about this shit and like watching it and fucking just seeing what we think it or, because there's obviously I don't think that's true, but like there's some that you do and you're like, come on to fuck, man.
It's entertaining, but any like conspiracy theory.
Wow, man.
I think we wanted today, we came up with the idea of like deep fried, but we were going to do on it quite early. But then we were waiting to get, like, we wanted to get everything right, so like green screen and like mad astronaut suits and that, weren't we? We waited till we could get all that stuff first.
We wanted it to feel pure completely different, do you know what I mean?
So it set the tone, because when you watch them you can kind of tell it does set it apart, and it kind of, it's like watching when Joe Rogan, they get full of mushrooms and that, and they wear the mad astronaut
it's
suit.
Just that's obviously where we go. It's like a different feeling in that, and I was like, and like as well, like a lot for like I used to watch Action Bronson watching Ancient Aliens.
Mate, see when I watched yours, that's the first thing that popped
like,
in
Mate,
my
well,
head.
that's exactly what we were going for.
That's like what we see, like obviously know that, but like we see that to be like the final version of Deep Fried where the whole flare and all that's a green screen and everything's a green screen and fucking we'll just sit at a weird green screen.
It's been a green screen all along.
It's just one big green screen, bro. And like and the editing's pure wild, like they're fading into it and then spinning round and that. Like that's what we see a sort of final version of that being like.
Aye, no, mate, that would be class, and it would have a suit it, man, because you're watching that, it would suit it deep fried. Action Bronzes, man, it's random to a degree, it's class, but they'll just sit in a couch, obviously, because they're baked, they're in space and that kind of thing, but your thing is fried, so it's as wild as it can be.
Exactly, aye.
So see when you eventually release your first episode, what was the initial reception like?
Mate, it was good, to be honest. It was a lot better than I thought it would be, to be honest. I don't know if it was just a case of people more wondering, like, what's this going to be like? Maybe people that had seen my videos are like, what's he going to be like for an hour and a half? Like, how's that going to translate into that? But it was really good, man. It got a lot more views than that than I expected it.
Aye, no, it definitely
to be honest, man.
I got mainly the things I was getting was like screenshots of me on the podcast, like, what the fuck are you doing and all that. Like,
Did you tell anybody you were doing a podcast, or was this the first cunt?
No, really, I don't think I did. But saying that, there was a lot of like setup before like us getting it sorted, so I probably did.
Aye, but the first episode it went well, and even when I watch it back now, it's funny. I see like the first maybe 5 episodes I watch your podcast, you're just like, oh no. Like, I remember we had Paul Black on as the first guest.
Aye.
And I remember when he came on, we had like bits of a big printy bit of paper, and it had like all the questions on it and that, which we still do to an extent, but like we had it printed out and it was there, and like I remember watching it back now, I'm like asking them something, right? And now the way you like, obviously we'll ask somebody something, and then if they say something in it, you're like, what talk more about that? Like you go on a tangent of the answer they give you. We were just like, he would answer something and I'd be like, right, you finished that answer, right, on to the next one. Is that a job interview?
We'll try to battle through every question.
What superhero would you be if you could be any superhero?
We've got multiple choice here. Just
pick one if you don't know.
Fill that out and we'll go.
The first 5 in that are like so stiff, but people took to it well right away, kind of thing, and it was good, but there's a lot of learning in that sort of first year of doing it.
Fuck, mate, you're always learning, man. Even fucking, I've been doing it about 2 years, man, and I'm learning something new, you always learn through something that pisses you off, man. It's stressful, innit?
Aye, definitely. Like we were saying, like maybe that we would do episodes and we're like, you're trying to think of new things, new guests, new things, and you come out and you're like, that didn't feel right or something. Like I remember we were interviewing Killian Sheridan, and I had the question. Obviously, he's played for like Celtic and fucking mate, but he's played all over the world. Like he's played in Bulgaria, New Zealand, and that. So before that, I'm like, right, what can I ask him? And I'm like, I don't want it to be too football orientated because we're not a football podcast, so I would ask about like a team he played for, and then I would go like, what was it like living in Bulgaria, like what were the people like, was there like culture shocks, like weird things and that, and he would answer about that, but there was a bit in it and I said something like pure, so when you're playing for who's it he played, Ammonia and Nicosia and Cyprus, I was like 29 goals in 48 games, do you think that was you at your best? And I was like, what did I fucking do? I was like, who am I fucking?
I got a fight and I was like
Gordon Duncan. So I was like that, like just didn't feel right, and it takes coming out of the ones to go like, what's the right things we should be asking, and but as you say, it's always when you do something bad, you're like, initially you've got a mad emotional response to it, you're like, we're shite, we can't do this with that, but everything gets blamed, and then you're like, no, like, now we know for next time.
Aye.
It's like a learning thing, it's no losing, it's no losing.
That's exactly like, learn from your mistakes, don't you, man? And it's your fuck ups when you learn, right, how did I fuck up there, what did I do to fuck up, right, how do I avoid that, mate? That's every cunt's done it. That's what you need to remind yourself. It's too easy to be self-critical.
Definitely.
What I feel like a thing I've learned about it is like having a balance of like the different ones we do. So like we went through like a period we had hundreds of guests on, and it was a bit like, pure choking to do a deep fried, and then you would do one of them or like a solo episode or whatever. But then there was after a point that we were like, right, we're not going to get that many guests on now, we'll just do solo ones all the time, which I thought would be like, that would be pure fun because you just got them just talk a lot of shit, do you know what I mean? But then even at the end of doing that, I feel like we had to, I don't know, like having a balance of the different types of podcasts, heavy important, I think.
Because it's obviously a different, people, like we would day ones ourselves, people would be like, we love day ones because it's obviously just used to, and you're close, and it's
get a rapport.
Aye, it's like when you watch an episode of Joe Rogan and it's somebody's pals with. There's very like an understanding between them. Know what I mean? So it's easier to listen to. But then like doing too many of them, as Jamie said, you're like, right, no, we need like people in to bounce off and all. Do you know what I mean? Like we can't just keep talking about fucking the same sort of stories. We need somebody to be like, what? Talk about that. And so it's learning like
different perspectives.
Aye, different. Aye, just all the different. But we've learned a sort of balance with it now, I think.
You try to just make it interesting for yourself as well as the viewer.
100%,
Exactly, mate.
mate.
Because
Aye.
if you're not enjoying it, then it's got to come across. Do you know what I mean?
It's a steal, mate. 'Cause I find that as well. Because I went for a period, I was like, right, I'll try and do a solo one a week with a guest one a week. But sometimes I go and do the solo ones. Not very often I go in with a subject to talk. I'll just start talking, and then I'll just start, by the way, and just start hinting this shit. And a lot of cunts like the ones, man. But see, I find the more I try and force them, they just don't come as well. It's just not as
Exactly,
natural.
mate.
But see, if there's a wee bit of period, I've got a lot to talk about. So
you need to get time to build up.
that's exactly it, mate. It's like having a relationship with the camera in it, man. If you see some cunt on the time, you're running out of shit, what you've been up to, mate, fuck all.
Walking away, bro.
That's the camera. Camera just say fuck all. Fuck, I'm doing a deep fry. But what are the biggest challenges you've faced in the podcast?
Getting to Wishaw every week, mate. Fucking aye, that, and I think it's the whole, as we were saying, you think it looks so easy coming up and just sitting and talking shite for an hour and then posting it. It's like, it's how constant it is. Like as soon as, if you're doing it weekly, as soon as one's done, edited, you're on to the next one. There's no like 2-3 weeks between it and you're not doing it, and do you know what I mean? It's constant, and it's like, I find that it's hard to keep. I find like getting new guests is hard because it's like, because it's a small country, it's like you're kinda, especially ones you really want to get on, do you know what I mean? And you're not just doing it because you're like, they've been on a few other ones, or do you know what I mean, that might not suit us. So I find like that's quite difficult, but we're trying to kind of keep getting new people on.
I think biggest challenge is still working full time, man.
I
I think that's murder, mate. Honestly, like I feel like it's the kind of thing that we should be putting all our time into, but you just can't either now, you know what I mean?
Of course you do. You need to get the bills paid somehow. I realised that, mate. So I kind of started the podcast roughly maybe about lockdown, so I started the perfect time at no work, getting paid money, and I went back to my job. I done scaffolding at the time, and I'd kind of made my mind up. I was like, this isn't for me, the scaffolding, but I had to rough it out. And see, having to drag yourself into work all the time and you've got that, it's just too easy to go, fuck this, man. But you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot, because at the end of the day, you need money coming in to sustain it, to get there and back.
You've got it. I think that was like big for us last year, because I would be in work and that, and pure all day you're just thinking about that day when you're not having to do that. Do you know what I mean? You're like, and because you're thinking about it so much and putting all that pressure on yourself, it takes almost the enjoyment out of doing it, because you're so worried about like, how do we get this to roll, and you forget to actually just enjoy doing it sometimes.
It's try to enjoy the moment, because sometimes I've had to learn that myself. It's too easy to go the future, but when you get there, it's not as good as you think it is, or it is good when you achieve it, but then it doesn't stay, because you need to be aiming towards something.
It's just like, it just keeps going, doesn't it?
That's it, man. So I kind of realised, just be grateful for the moment. 'Cause you think, where were you a year ago or 2 years ago, man? This is the kind of shit you used to wish for, where you're the now.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Like that's what I was thinking towards the end of that year. I was like, imagine I could tell myself maybe 5-6 years ago, here, you're gonna have a podcast and thousands of people will be listening to it, and like I'd be like, what? Do you know what I mean? So no, because I'm here, it's easy to look up and go, how have I not got all that? Do you know what I mean? But you never look down and go, look at all that shit, look how far I've came. You know what I mean?
And plus as well, when you think of that, like, right, where was I like a few years ago? I didn't have any of this. Look what I've got in a few years. When am I going to be in another few years? Then it gives you hope, like, right, I want to fucking, the harder I work the now, the more I'm going to have.
Exactly.
Quicker, know what I mean?
But as you say, like, enjoying how it is the now, and no pure like wishing it away for what you're going to get in the future.
Gratitude is the attitude.
It's like, it's just keeping yourself in. Because I was listening to somebody doing a talk, and I've heard a lot about this, but obviously just like the present moment, and like trying to keep yourself, because you never have anything apart for that. Like the future and the past are just like concepts in your head and memories.
They don't exist technically.
So like all you'll ever have, even when you get there, is the present moment. So it's just like winning that moment every time you can, sort of thing.
It's enjoying the small victories and that, innit? I remember somebody saying a quote once: if you've got one foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, you're pushing on the present. But it's
It's
kind of
true,
true,
man,
because
that's
because you don't live in the moment. It's just you're always, because you think about the future, you get anxiety, you think about the past too much, it can cause depression. So you're just grateful where I'm other now.
Even
take
like,
a wee moment to breathe.
Even like happy shit. Like, see if you're pure like thinking about say you're thinking about like a week off I've got like in the future at one point. If it comes and it's shite, you're heavy disappointed and you've pished on the present. Then
You're right, bro, mate. See when you think of like a week off work or you're gone on holiday, I try and no build up too much to that, because see, you think, like, I've got a week off, so you can work like that, who gives a fuck, I'm off for a week, running up to it, then it gets to it, once that week's done, you get back to work, you're like, I'm back, I got a week off.
That's what I think, like, pushes me so much to do this and, like, trying, because obviously I love doing the podcast, see the thought of, like, just doing that, and, like, other shit, like, creative shit, like, making videos and whatever, like, the thought of just doing that and no having to, like, go in and, like, I don't know, it's like that. See how the way, like, all year people will wait on one holiday. You're like, can't I wait for this 2 weeks, this full year? This is what I'm looking forward to, and every week you're in work and you're like, fuck this, hate this shit, can't I wait till this is done? That's so much time of your life, do you know what I mean? I want every day to feel like day 2 weeks, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to ever be waiting for a week in my life, pure rattling in that for it coming.
If you actually think, like, in relation to like your life, how small a week is, know what I mean? And you can that's nothing.
And as you say, mate, if you spend the full year just thinking about a week or 2 week away kind of thing, then what if you're in that job for 30 years?
I know, exactly, mate. Like, I remember, do you
it's
know,
a month or something.
What's your life about?
Well, I used to work in House of Fraser, right? And it has like a Cafe Nero inside it, so I'd go up there and like on my break and get a coffee or whatever. And I went up and there's this guy and he worked in there and he was always so cheery, and I'd always be like, fuck this guy's a coffee and that, do you know, pure depressing. And I was like, I said, oh, what time you working to? And he was like, oh, till closing or something. And I was like, gutter. And he's like, nah, it's alright. And I was like, you know, dying to go home. And he was like, I'm here 8 hours a day. I might as well try and enjoy them. Do you know what I mean? I was like, such a good way of looking at it. I've never even thought about looking at it like that until that point.
You always think there's something going on, don't you?
No, I was thinking about it, and that's just reminded me again. And you said something at the start of the podcast that reminded me. You said like a transfer of energy or something. I remember, I think I've told you about this, but I remember I was waiting for food somewhere, right? And you got like a wee ticket for it, right?
Aye.
And like, say I was like 35 on my wee ticket. The guy came up and he went to shout like 35. I thought he was going to say that. So I had like, my reaction pure locked. I was just going to go, aye, cheers, mate, and just take it and go away. But he was like 34. And then a lassie that was next to me was like, yes, I'm 34, cheers, Nat. And she was pure buzzing. And the guy went for being pure dour to being like, oh, no bother, there you go, Nat, mate. And I could actually see it happen in front of me. And I was like, I need to start cheering up a bit, man. I need to start getting off a bit better shit.
Aye, that's exactly it, mate. It's like, sometimes, I can remember, it was a guy I had my podcast, James, he was telling about this story, it was on Twitter, I couldn't say fucking maybe dampening the vibe here, but this guy, it's like, this guy had went and jumped off a bridge in America, killed himself, and they went to go and try and trace the guy, and they went to his house. I think he stayed his cell, and the police went in his house and that, and they found a note, and it says, I'm going to walk to this bridge and jump off. If one person says hello to me, I'm not going to do it.
Oh, what?
And they couldn't say hello. So it's sometimes like that, and it's you hear about like being a blessing somebody else. You see, if you just say alright, mate, you can like talk to something or like give them a show, say have a nice day or something. But pure perks comes up, like, there's a bit of positivity in the world.
Even for being on the other side of that, like see, like as you're saying, like even when I worked in Fraser's or whatever, when somebody would come in and just be sound as fuck, like pure cheers, bro, have a nice day, man. It actual brightens up your day. Like, I was talking to you about that talk I went to, right?
Aye.
Guy called Dr. David Hamilton. I went to that talk and he was saying like, so he said to everybody like, what do you think the opposite of stress is? Right? Like, what's the opposite of that? So like people were saying like peaceful and like calm, and he's saying I would say that, but physiologically the way your brain works, right, the feeling of stress, the opposite of that is kindness. So when you're showing kindness, it's impossible for you to still feel stressed in that moment. It's like, so he was saying like, for example, see, he was like, this is my favourite stat, and I found this mad. He was saying that, see if you have a heart attack, right, see the whole year after, like the first year of you having that heart attack after it, if you've got a dog you're 400 times less likely to have another heart attack.
Really, aye?
Because of the mad affection. Every time you come in the door, the pure, see the reducing stress that brings, 400 times less likely to have another heart attack that year.
That's fucking
how
mad.
mental is that?
That's mental.
They should do that in the NHS, man. They should subscribe you with
Aye,
a dog.
subscribe
you with
a dog, yes, a
St
dog.
Bernard's there. Just go and get it for the chemist.
NHS, you probably get hit with a hang with 3 legs, Moles Wayne's in it.
Mate, that's a cat. No, it's
They're
not.
definitely a dog, mate. They're just
Fucking hamster.
It's Algerian. It's Algerian, mate.
Fucking hell, man. See, when you've been releasing podcasts, I don't know how many episodes you've released. How many would you say you've released?
Maybe about near 50ish. With all the deep frieds involved.
The
And
Patreon, I think it's a lot more than that.
maybe 60, 70.
A fair few anyway. So, do you just get people messaging you that have maybe took something for the podcast and that we're talking about that kind of positive?
Aye, well, it's more just like because there's obviously a lot of podcasts that are about mental health, right?
Aye.
And I kind of, obviously that's commendable and I think that's good and like people should talk about their mental health and shit, but I always found for my mental health, the best thing I could do is like no think about it and talk about it. It's more like just find something that didn't involve that at all. So I used to watch, I remember if I felt bad I'd always watch Trailer Park Boys. I don't know if you've ever watched Trailer
I've
Park
never
Boys.
watched it, but I know what it is.
So it's just this, like there's nothing ever serious in it. It's just all these cunts pure fucking things and like accidentally taking too many drugs and like it's all funny and that always made me feel much better than listening to like pure, if you're depressed you should do this and go walk, and that just made me think about it more.
Aye.
But so I always try and make the podcast like no even involve that ever, any of that chat, because I want people to like, if they've had a shite day, be like, no, what? See, to like change my brain lane for a minute, like just to move me aside, and I'll just escape to this mad other sort of world where none of this is even a thing and it's just cunts being daft and laughing the full time.
People have like messaged me like confirming that.
Aye, so like that's your think behind it, and cunts have obviously said like, mate, like I've been going through a shite time and it's just been like putting a smile on my face when I've been feeling bad and that, and it's a mad feeling when that happens, because you're like, we just think we're going up and we're like, can you remember any stories when you're full of eckies, mate? And all that. And then like we've got people actually listening to it, pure benefiting mentally and shit, and you're like, that kind of puts it into perspective, it being a meaningful thing, because as much as we have a laugh and joke about it and kind of don't take it seriously, and that's like, it does seriously help people sometimes.
Aye, of course, and plus, see, when you've got that as well, it goes past the point of just doing it for yourselves. Like, you see, if you're just doing something for yourself and nobody was taking to it, it'd be very easy to go, fuck it, I'm not going to do one this week. But you think when people are watching it, taking a lot for it, you're serving a
responsibility,
purpose.
man.
For keep people alive, essentially.
Aye, because even if I've been kind of gutted about it, or I've been like, views haven't been good, or this didn't do well, or put a clip up and it done shite or whatever, like, my girlfriend, she'll always say to me, like, fucking, think about the people that like wait on that every week, like wait for them. Because I was listening to a podcast with Theo Vaughan, he was talking about, he had a guy on who he was on the phone to him and he got blew up. He was in the army and he got blew up by a mine or something, right? And both his legs were completely fucked. And he says like, he's asking him, how do you keep going, man? How do you stay positive? Because the guy was pure having a laugh and joking about it and that, and it's obviously a crazy traumatic thing to happen to you. And he was like that, like, I think about all the guys that happened to, that I knew and they died. Like, if I can't, some days I don't want to live for myself, but I'll live for them. Do you know what I mean? I'll date for them. Like, the day I'm not living for me, but I'm going to get myself up and I'll date for them, because they never got the chance to even try to do it. And it's like a mad powerful kind of mindset, and to an extent you can apply that to the podcast, because as much as we're like, why we not doing it full time yet, and blah, like, it's such a minor thing when somebody's actually listening to it and it's making their life better.
It actually blows my mind thinking about any cunt listening to me talking shit like us.
It's pretty mad,
to this day, if I actually think about it for a bit, instead of pure going like, it's just numbers, not if you actually think about cunts actually just sitting down putting your podcast in their ears, that still blows my mind.
It's a truly beautiful thing, because I only really think it's Scottish people that can make talking shite so compelling. Because people can connect with it, because you go into a gaff, cunts are all mad with cunts, and it's quite a big thing, cunts getting on it, the shite you hear cunts talking. But it's a buzz, and it takes away the seriousness of life, because you're going on to the fucking, you follow the news and media, it's all the country's fucked, this politician's fucked, there's war in Ukraine and all that shit, and it's just serious. See, you just go somewhere where it's just fucking shite talk. It might have like pure deep as such, where you're thinking about your emotions. You're not thinking, there's no thought in it. You're just laughing.
That's like the best. Like I was talking about this on All About Ability just there. I mean, Jamie went on, but there was a talk I watched, and it was this guy and he had like a glass of water. Don't know if you've seen it, right? It's pure, didn't blow my mind, but it's just such a good wee brain trick, and it's like. he's in front of a class and he's holding this glass of water and he's like, I'm going to hold this glass of water till my hand touches. Basically, he was like, how heavy do you think the water is? Like the glass, and like, it's America, so they're like 4 ounces, 8 ounces, 10 ounces. And he's like, do you know what the truth is? It doesn't matter how heavy this glass of water is. If I hold on to it for 5 minutes, my arm will start to hurt. If I do it for an hour, my arm will be numb. Do you know what I mean? 2 hours, it'll be even number. Like, so he says it's about, and he was like, think about this as like life's problems. You know what I mean? And he's like, you can just put the glass down. Like, you don't need to always be thinking about the problems and thinking about them for 5 minutes and an hour and thinking about all the things in your life. Like, you can literally just put it down and just let it go for a bit and live your life. Do you know what I mean? And like unshackle yourself almost for thinking and worrying about the future. And I think that's what we want our podcast to sort of be like a way to just go, do you know what? I might fucking hate my job and I might hate my fucking living situation. I'm not getting any money, but see, for these tools, I can just put that to the side and just enjoy a bit of my day. I think that's
act as an escape almost.
Aye.
See, at what point did you realise that was the purpose your podcast was going to serve?
No, at first, man, because I remember we came on, we were like, we're going to bring through all the new Scottish talent and all that, and then I was like, I don't think we are actually. We didn't realise how much work that would take, y'all outdated scouting trips and all that. You know what I mean?
Try to get them out their house.
I think when I realised it actually like, meant something that wasn't just having a laugh, was like, it was a guy he stays in Spain now, and he was like, I get heavy homesick, and he's like, and that just sorts me out. He's like, if I watch that for like 2 hours a week, I'm like fine for the full
really?
week.
Aye, so
and he was
what's
like getting to the
like
point he was going to be coming up the road, I know.
Right,
and
that's
like,
fucking mad.
We have a lot of like
that
this,
was like right to the start, mate, and I was like, oof, that's actual mad.
We have like, see, when I look at our analytics and that, and even like places on merch just went, it's like a lot in like England and Australia and shit, and it's a lot of people who have moved and they're like looking for that bit of like keeping that mad Glasgow sort of hanging their head, like the Scottish hanging their head, like that, getting that wee bit of Glasgow banter.
Oh, the banter.
It basically is just that hang.
Because you go elsewhere, mate, there's no can't really go fucking banter.
No.
Patter, I like to use patter it is, man.
No,
it's like the way we talk, just the way we're fucking witting it.
I found that in Vietnam, like going and meeting pure Canadian people and that, and they're pure, hey buddy, and I'll be like saying mad shit and being sarcastic and that, and they're like, I don't think that's true actually, and I'm like, oh fuck, like it's only us that are like that. I remember I met a big guy. He ran like a YouTube channel. He was called the White Monkey Syndicate, because he calls like people that basically, he's saying like the teachers in Vietnam are just white monkeys. Like you're just a performing monkey, and because you're white, that's why they pick you, because it's heavy racist in Vietnam, right?
Is it?
Mate, so like this is crazy, this mindset. I didn't realise it was like this before I went, but I was told that like basically Vietnamese, I don't think they have a good understanding of how people can be for different places, but like how a black guy could like be completely English, right? So what happens is, because they're paying for the education for their kids, they're like, we want a real English teacher in here, like for England or for America and that. And see, when like a black guy goes in, they're like, no, he's African. Like they don't have that hanging their head. Like,
right,
so
kind of grasp the concept.
Everything in Vietnam, and I don't know if it's just like this in communist countries, but everything's about how it looks, right? So like, I never got once asked like, how'd that class go, or what did they learn? Or it was all like, did anybody get any good pictures of you? And like, it's all about putting a mad image out there, but it's never about the substance. So like, they don't care how good you are at being a teacher. They care about how much you look like a stock image of a teacher with a shirt on, and like that's all they care about. You could be the worst teacher ever, as long as you've got like an accent that sounds like native speaking and that. So it's like, so I get told is after the company that hired me, like somebody that works for them who'd been there for years, he was like, that, do you know, like I don't have a teaching degree or anything, right? You need to do a TEFL, like teach English a foreign language. You need to do a certificate, it's like a few days somewhere in the town you do it, and then you sit a mad thing and whatever. But anybody can get it. You don't need to go to uni, and you just need to be that, and then like be for a native speaking country. But there's people that go out there like teaching degrees, like been teachers in London for 10 years and that. And I was told like, if I went for a job interview and like a black guy for like England or something went for a job interview who'd been a teacher for like 10 years, if we both went for that, I would get the job over him.
What?
Because I look more like what they want their teacher to look like.
Mate, I always remember I was saying about like how I was asking you stuff about Vietnam. I always remember talking to you and being like, mate, I've got a mad Zoom interview tomorrow and I'm heavy nervous about it. And you're like, no, I'll just checking you're white, mate.
I know. They're just checking like, Because mate, see when you go there, like it's hard to get see like face wash and like shower gel and shit like that. It's hard to get it without skin whitening in it. Like when the sun's out, they all cover up because they all want to be seen as white. Because like so the way they view like their society is, if you're like darker toned, let's say they're both Vietnamese but want somebody's darker tone, they're like, right, they've got a low paying job because they're out all day, they're picking fruit in a field, or like that's classed as like a low ranking thing to have like darker skin. But then the people that are pure chalk white, they're like, oh, they're in a big office all day, they don't get any of the sun. So that's how they determine who's like a high ranking member of their society and that, by their skin tone.
That's mental.
All the shower gels, everything's got skin whitening in it, and as soon as the sun comes out, they've all got umbrellas and they put their jackets up and all that.
So obviously you're there, obviously you're white, then I imagine you tan in the sun.
I went away like, I was alright because obviously I've got a bit of tan, but they were like, it wasn't too much for them, know what I mean? I held up the wee chat. You're right on the line, mate. And then I remember like, I went on holiday, so I had like a week's holiday, and I went to this wee island called Phu Quoc. Right. And I came back and it's scorching there, like beaches and all that. And then I went back to like Saigon, and I went into the office and I had a tan. They were like, "You alright?" And I was like, "Aye, man." They're like, "Oh, you get too much sun." And I was like, "Ah." I was like, "No, it's a tan. It's good." And they were like, "Oh, you need to watch that and all that." I was like, fuck's sake.
What the fuck?
But we go to like sunbeds and that here.
You come back that tan, like,
when you're pale, you go, "You're right, mate."
It's like the total opposite thing.
That's mad.
That is madness, man. So how is it adjusting to like the culture and that in Vietnam?
Weird, mate. Like, with Vietnamese people just talk. Like, see if we were sitting in a room, right? Like, what would happen is, see if I was teaching. I've never been that nervous in my life, mate. See the first teaching class I done, it was like, I went for an interview and they were like, right, you've got a demo class, the Mora, right? And I'm like, the Mora, mate? Like, she's like, 10 a.m. the Mora, you're going to be teaching a class for 25 minutes and they're 3 years old. And so you need to prepare a lesson for the Mora, come back, do it, and we'll sit up the back and mark it. And I remember, like, see that night, mate, I've never struggled to sleep as much as that in my life. Like, I fucking felt I'd been for a proper sitting. I was put in my bed. I was put like just thinking about like, what the fuck am I going to do? I remember I went in and I tried to like play a game and it just didn't work in that, and I was like, oh my god, I was sweating out my box. It was like 32 degrees and they're just sitting up the back pure marking me and that. And then after it went alright, and then I remember they were telling me about it, like there was a mad sit down after it, pure it was this and now even if you done bad in a job interview here, they'd be like, right, so I mean, yeah, you done alright, and like they would never be like, that was shite, mate. You know what I mean? She was like that to me, you're not the best teacher, but you're not the worst I've seen, so just brutal. Like, they're so like direct, like they don't have
so blunt.
And they'll talk about you in front of you. So like, I remember I was always teaching like 2 to 4 year old, 5 year old sort of, so it was dead easy, mate. You just sang wee songs to them and that, and done mad jumping into hoop games and jumping, like I would say like fish, and there would be like a hoop with fish and a hoop with a cat and a dog, and they would need to jump in the right one and shit like that, right? And I remember like when I'd do songs, like the teaching assistants would just sit up the back and laugh at you, mate. Like, no little bad way up your like pointing at you while you're doing it and that.
Well, as if we're ripping the piss you.
Aye, but like,
that's because you're singing Robbie Williams, but on it.
Aye, let me entertain you.
What kind of shit you did?
Mate, no, it was just like Wayne's.
The wheels in the bus, now.
Aye, and shit like Baby Shark and that. But like some of them would just like laugh at you and that. You're like, and they have no concept of like
manners.
Like putting somebody's feelings into consideration.
Can I empathy to a degree?
Because mate, I remember like even there was a mad. They love putting a show on for anything, mate. Like Valentine's Day, they'll put a big stage show on and that, right? And I remember like the company I worked for were like putting one on, and it was some of the teaching assistants that could sing and all that, and it was all the principals were going to come, and I remember they were like that. So Evan, because you're the foreign teacher, we would like you to sing in the new festival show. And I was like, I'm not a good singer on that, but try to pure Patter Pouffe. And they're like, oh, you can do it. You're handsome. You can do it. And I was like,
you're right.
Aye, that's what it was. So I'm in my head. I'm like, right, they want a white guy singing, right? So I'm like, what about Aaron, right? That's my guy from Texas. And she was like, oh no, Aaron is fat. I was like, what, man?
Poor Aaron.
And know what they wanted me to sing? I was like, what if I sing anyway? She's like, I Believe I Can Fly by R Kelly.
Okay.
And I was like, have you just no heard yet? No way.
No, wait, you see this.
Fucking hell,
Mate,
man.
did R. Kelly no go to Vietnam and bring your passport?
No,
that's Ethiopia.
Ethiopia, mate.
Ethiopia.
How
Fuck, man,
good
I
is
had that, man. Fucking Ethiopia
I know.
mixed up.
Mate, the last podcast I wasn't on, fucking, he got Sean your own, and they FaceTime me, and they were like, what about all that stuff? My name's Jamie Kelly, obviously. They're like, what about that stuff that your uncle's been doing? And I just went with it, because I'm like, it's on the podcast. I was like, he's a good guy, you know, leave him. And it was like, Robert Kelly. And I was like, and then at the end of the phone call, I was like, they're talking about R. Kelly.
And he's like, I said, do you know disappointed? And he's like, aye, but he's my uncle and that. No,
I am that, obviously.
He released an album for the jail and I think they took it down.
Mate.
Mate, we were listening to a bit of it. It was like,
Look
it
up
was like,
paedophile.
yeah, I like them bitches young and old, but how you call that shit a pedophile? And it was like, just because they're young and shit, and it was like him admitting everything on an album. It's fucking.
It was like, get the dictionary, look up pedophile.
It's crazy, bro. I think the album's called I Admit It or something.
Fuck off, man.
Mental, mate.
Fuck's sake.
Can't
Paul
watch
Breach will be
that.
coming out with one of them soon, man.
Mate, you need to try and get him on. Would you have him on?
mate.
I would have him on a heartbeat, bro.
Hi, Fivo.
Oh, mate, I don't know.
Green grass.
I did my house. I didn't have that cunt in my house. I don't want to bring him up next thing you know, the fucking wolf packs.
I bet that might sting with it.
I know,
And
mate.
your sitting room like that, alright, mate?
Mate, I'd consider it an option. Seeing what you says it would be good. But I think he stays in England and all that, man. I don't know. I could probably settle for the Wish version and get that quirky one cunt on.
Aye.
But I don't want cunts pure because I think if I go to Moan and didn't rip the piss at him,
Aye.
cunts would turn on me. And
As
I,
if you're like
and I don't
giving him
want-
a platform.
and I don't want to fucking. I don't want to. I wouldn't
Have
want to-
somebody in your house and just tear into them.
I wouldn't want to do that. Know what I mean? Just bring him up. When we do a podcast, just start slaughtering.
Fucking beast.
Make them flinch now.
Mate, acid man of the sting things, and it was like the cunt was getting recorded. It's this cunt that's got TikTok called King Ian or something.
Right.
It's this big fat cunt. It's like that. Have you had any sexual relations with this boy? And he's like, not yet. And they're like, what you mean no yet? And he's like, I mean no.
He's like, he did not just say that.
Mate, some of the things are comedy gold, eh, man. People hunters
Yeah,
catching kids.
I end up feeling bad for them, but sometimes, mate, they're like, because they're obviously get something up with them, most of them, mate.
Aye.
Like, some
Aye.
of them have got like the pure mental intelligence of a child, and they're just
Aye.
sitting going, you're a fucking.
Don't try and bush not.
Did you not see the fucking they pulled up like they stung a cunt that was like 14? The wee guy was
Aye,
like
mate.
14 and they're like, you're missing a 14-year-old. He's like, I'm 14. Like, no, you're not.
And then-
He's a wee guy.
He's like, I am also that cunt was messaging the 14-year-old because he'd set him up. Like he was the wee lassie. He was catfishing him. Know what I mean?
Aye,
So
aye.
He was effectively the
the
bad
hunter
people.
became the hunted, mate.
Mate, that's it. I've always found the things weird, and obviously you're like, it's good they're getting the justice for that and all that, but there's always been something I'm like, this just feels odd that like cunts are just sitting in a room going, let's let's like catch some of these beasts today, you know what I mean? And pure like, it is weird. I guess it could be like a thing, like now the thing with that quirky and that, it's like they're pure. So why don't you get your dick out and all that? Like talking to a wee boy, like trying to sting them and that. Do you know what I mean? Like they're doing it and all.
Aye, it's a weird one, mate. It's like, 'cause I think some of them, I don't know, like, I remember the very first I heard it, I've heard of Stinson Hunter.
Aye, I watched that thing about him.
So
Aye.
when he done one, he was the very first cunt I heard of doing it. And I remember the interviewer asking, like, have you ever been like, abused a child and that? And he pure went, I'm no fucking answering that. No, he went into defensive, obviously.
Traumatic,
Like, something's going on.
aye.
And you're like, right, that's obviously a reason.
Aye.
A reason
Aye.
behind it. But I think, mate, fucking... I was watching a video the other week and it was like a leader of one of these groups, he get fucking exposed for being a beast. So like,
Aye.
right, fair dues. You can understand cunts doing videos, maybe try to project away, but to be actively leading a group,
Mate, just like we were talking
trying to
about,
eliminate the competition.
the chairman and all that. That's what we were talking about at the start, mate. They're just hiding in plain sight.
Aye, like the people, as I said, the people that murder people, then they're like, we will find out. It is like that. They're just trying to get the link up, know what I mean?
Aye, mate, try to fucking get the punters.
Try to get that little black book out. It's like weird. I think it's bad when you start doing it for likes and that, and start trying to make people laugh and that. Like, obviously, if you're doing it for the actual
Mate.
good of getting somebody off the street.
I was sitting in work, right, and I was watching one on my lunch, and I seen it was like Canvas Lang, right, and a guy in my work's fake Canvas Lang. I know he's like older than me, he's like 40 or something, and I remember I was watching it, right, and I'm like, this guy looked about 40, and I'm like, no, I can't call. I'm trying to think of a different name. I'm not going to actually.
Boris.
It was like, and I said like Andy Stewart. No, I can't call Andy Stewart. And he was like, no, I know fucking Alex Stewart, but fucking, I know him, but is it that? And I was like, no, it's Aaron. And then I looked again, it did say Alex Stewart, and I was like, it's Alex Stewart. And he was like, I fucking know him. I used to go to Rangers games with him and all that. And I was like,
is it his pal?
It was like his pal's cousin or something.
Right, so he'd
met him a few times, but he was like, that what, man?
You actually never know who's into mad wild shit, but I was thinking about that. See them into wee guys from my school that were like seemed alright, and I've seen pictures of them in the digger after doing mad wild shit and that, mate.
You never know, man.
You actually never know.
They're like mad decent shit.
Aye, man.
Alright, aye.
Bro, aye. All the time, mate. I always hear things about that.
It's a shock, because obviously I was in the jail with some cunts, man, and then you get out. I'm pure suspicious. I can't see when cunts tell me a story. Maybe they've got the jail or something. See if I meet some cunt and I'm feeling suspicious about them, I Google them. I go and Google cunts, mate. I've Googled all sorts of cunts, man. Because being in the jail with cunts, they tell you you're in for something, you go and Google them, you're like, you lying bastard.
Robbed a show.
Fucking robbed an old woman. I remember the first time, cunt was for Canvas Lang, you know? Fucking, very first time I was in the bail cells. Fuck, I'll say his name after it. I can't mind it. And he was like, I fucking, me and my co-accused were in for robbed a cunt full of red blues last night. And then fucking, I remember going to fucking Parliament, and there was a cunt in there going like, he fucking robbed an old woman. The other boy was for Canvas Lang. And I went and googled it, mate, like a 67-year-old woman, the two of them were like 20, robbed her with a blade and that. But the cunt was saying he was in for just, I robbed a cunt last night.
I mean, he didn't lie. That cunt was a 78-year-old woman, but
Mate, that happened to me, a cunt I worked with and all, that fucking, he ended up fucking leaving our work, and then we googled him like fucking 3 months later, because somebody's like, I heard they get the jail and he'd like get caught in like Kilmarnock fucking robbing an old woman's purse and all that. We're like, what? But the cunt was always full of blues and all that, and in the work, like, used to sit in the break and his eyes were like that. We always used to go at pure when we had on us a drug test today, and we'd like, we wouldn't say to him, but we'd make sure we were near him. But Chris, you hear a fucking, they're up the top drug testing today, man, fuck, they'll definitely be doing here and that, and you seen him pure. And then he'd be like, I need to go and pick my daughter up for school, she's no well and all that. You go into the boss, he didn't even have a motor, not my daughter. You go into school, I fucking piggyback him,
I just turned up to the school, you're my daughter. Busted by the pedo hunters, like, I was just trying to fucking pass a drug test. What is it used there? As what?
I work in like an engineering placement, so
is that what you were doing? But you know, a student for a period?
But I was doing youth work. My degree was community development,
right?
So I ended up patching it after like 2.5 years. I was just fed up of being fucking skint, not having enough money and shit. But I done that. But the place I'm in now, it's more like I sort of like, I'll take in deliveries and shit. It's not actually to do with the engineering side of it, but it's alright, man. It's alright. It's good, but. It's not always an event for it was a fucking railway.
I do civil engineering, like out on sites and that.
Civil engineering day, that's a fucking decent number.
Well, I done that. That's what I done at uni and that. But now I'm doing like a kind of offshoot of that. It's like testing. The grunt testing. Are
you the kind of cunt that goes out to the site and they sit with the mad tripod things and they just go and look at it?
I used to be like that, mate. I used to do that and it was better doing that, but I was fucking stressed out my nut with. And see, with like the podcast and that, like I had to have something that wasn't pure. Like with that, you need to, after you go and look at a wee tripod thing, you need to like upload shit to a computer, go home and like map out full drawings and that, and it is heavy stressful.
Oh, so what is it, like basically a job you're taking home with you?
Aye, all the time, mate. So, no, it's like a kind of offshoot, I like civil shit, but it's good because I get to like I just bounce about the fuck of Scotland with a van, mate, so I meet mad wild characters all the time, know what I mean? Like on different sites and that, aye.
Did you go and do that off the back of starting the podcast, like I need to kind of scale down here, or did it happen before?
I don't even remember, I think I was already doing it, it just kind of worked out well, but I was saying to Evan the other day I was on site and a boy, and hardly ever get recognised when I'm on site, right? Like for the podcast or that, because like I've got my fucking like hard hat on and my jacket on and all that, so I was sitting doing this test and this wee guy came up and he was like, oh mate, I heavy love the podcast and all that. And see, another guy that I was working with for this site, he was like an old mad grumpy cunt, right? And see, when I seen this boy talking to me and saying like, oh blah blah, asking for pictures and all that, and I was purely like, mate, I don't know if I can take a picture in the middle of this site and all that. I just felt weird about it.
Aye.
And then I ended up doing it, and then the mad old guy's like, who the fuck are you? And I was like, oh, nobody in that. And the wee guy was like, nobody. He does this thing, man. Pure try.
You get your back up.
He was like, what, so you think you're it? No, I was like, no, mate. I'm had other engineer came here like, oh, how are we getting on? The cunt said, no, this wee cunt thinks he's famous now. I was like, pure trying to wrap it all up, man. I'm getting out of here, you know what I mean?
I always think you do like try and like in working at it as well. Like like my bosses will be like, they know a date, so they're like, got anybody famous coming on and that? And I'm just like, you're never gonna know who's coming on this. But like, I'll say something and they're like, it's good and that. But you always try and like play it down almost. You're like, fuck knows and that. But you definitely know you know everything for the next fucking 4 weeks.
You've got it pure planned out meticulously. Like, some kind of like indie famous on, you're like, fuck knows. Podcast, no, fuck.
Then you're not gonna know.
Are you on TikTok all the time?
No, on TikTok, no, fuck, you're not gonna know anything.
Well, I'm busting that Paul Breach next to you.
I do think that, but I think like, especially with ours and like the fact that ours isn't really one that's like both our podcasts are only one that we're going to like be scared to, well, obviously to an extent, but you're not going to be scared to like say something or talk about something mad or like, do you know what I mean? So I feel like they podcasts, like we don't really get a push in terms of like a mad mainstream side of things. So like I think like there'll probably be people we've asked to come on who'll maybe watch it and go, fuck, they're talking about taking eckies now, I'm not coming on that or something. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't want to be associated with that because they're trying to be like look good for like maybe like the BBC or like a mainstream thing. So I feel like we've got a mad, it's not a ceiling in terms of like how good the guest can be, but there's a mad certain genre guest where it would be hard for us to get them on because they're just like, I want to be something like official and I know all the questions before it, and like they want to make sure, like even it wasn't his fault, but there's a wrestler who works for WWE called Noam Dar, and we wanted him to come on it because he followed me for years, and I was like, fuck, I was just looking through who had a blue tick my followers. I was like, him. And I was like, but I knew that he would have been good anyway because he's fucking good, fascinating at working for them and that. And he was like 100%, I'll do it. And I'm back in Scotland on this date and that. And it was during like COVID when it was still dodgy, but people were going out. It wasn't quite total lockdown. And I was trying to get him on, and I had to message WWE corporate. Email to get permission to sign them off to do it
because of a contract and that shit.
So I done it, and then this my guy Jules something, he messaged back saying, right, I am happy for him to date, here's the conditions, it needs to be on Zoom, there needs to be one of your agents sitting like privately in the background listening to the full thing. We need to know every single question you're going to ask, and you can't ask anything without what you send me. And I was like,
it was like interviewing the president or something.
I was like, I don't want to fucking do that. So it's like people that are attached to big things like that, they're never going to be able to come on something and just talk pure freely about shit.
And sometimes I think even if they did, like, do you know how when you see shit like Barack Obama going on like Jerry Seinfeld's things and it's all scripted as fuck, it doesn't even look good, mate.
Because they kind of see people, especially like in politics as well, they're going on, they're trying to show a side and it isn't even him, it's all an act. So they go, that's the guy. It's not to get votes and not to be popular. It's just
exactly,
politicians
and they jump on mad trends. Like they would say, like they would say, I don't know, like a mad TikTok thing.
Like that Paul Breach.
No, but they'll go on and they'll use mad slang for TikTok and all that. Know what I mean?
I totally stand that.
I try to be pure relevant.
Exactly, mate. And it just comes across pure fake. Know what I mean? So I think you do need to be the kind of right person to come on.
I think after a while, because look at Joe Rogan, he gets full of mushies and all that, and he's got one of the biggest podcasts in America. Don't get me wrong, there's probably a lot of countries that don't go on it for that reason, but I think after a while, see, once you get like your subscribers up to a certain amount, there's cunts going to be like, listen, this is a heavy good PR stunt if I go on that, because you're touching to an audience that usually see these mainstream cunts maybe. I think for the likes of us, we're for the non-mainstream. There's a lot of cunts because you watch that BBC, you know, that shit, and fair dues, people do well off it, but it's pure diluted humour.
It's pure overly Scottish, pure. What you doing? You know that? You're like,
from Scotland.
A wee iron brew? You know that? It's so like cringy.
Maybe the thing with him is they're written, most of that shit's written by a mad room of people, mate, who haven't actually...
They all went to uni in the west of Scotland.
They're off in Hindland and that, you know what I mean?
Try to remember the BAMs that I had in my class. What would be Johnny saying?
What would that BAM say?
Yeah, there's a little guy, Johnny, only had 2 cars for his household. What was it?
What did he used to call it? I can't remember.
Get mad with it. That was it.
It ends up a mad diluted thing, but it's like, I think that's why a lot of people would. But as you say, it does get to a certain point where it's undeniable. Like, see if you look at even, I always find it mad. Like, see the Nelk boys, know what I'm talking about?
Aye.
Like the fact that like Elon Musk interacts with them, like the levels of intellect he has above them, and he'll go on their podcast and they're like, so what the fuck is fucking happening with Twitter, man? That's obviously to him, that's the pure dumbest thing he's ever heard. So
Mr. Beast does shit with him and all that.
Aye, so it's like you get a level of following where cunts are just accept and just, alright, I'll turn a blind eye to like whatever this is and just look at the numbers sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Plus as well, see you think of somebody like Elon Musk, think of the amount of fucking interviews he's done with intellectual people, pure handwritten fucking questions, clever questions that surely after they're like, nah, I just want to go on a podcast and talk shite with cunts.
We've even had that with guests in the podcast. Like we just had when's this coming out? Do you know?
What day is it today? Saturday, next weekend, right?
So Sunday there we had Hayley Zelassi on. And I remember she's a DJ in that, and I remember like we kind of stopped maybe an hour into it. Jamie had to go to the toilet or whatever, something. We had to stop him.
It
was definitely Jamie that had to go to the toilet. Big horrible shite. And she was like, I felt we barely spoke about it, but I think she done another podcast, and she's maybe just used to it just being like question about her, and we're like telling her stories and that as well.
Aye.
So it's more like a laid back sort of thing. So I
kind of the same way this has been. I know I prefer shit like that.
I prefer it
because I think you
natural.
get people more comfortable in that. I know the actual.
That's it. I've realised that with some people. Cause I've had people on the podcast and they said, first podcast sitting down pure nervous, but see the minute I've started kind of sharing my experience or talking, that's what's kind of eased them into a conversation where they forget on the podcast.
Aye.
I think I know like the way we kind of talk about it's true of you, I know, like just talk about anything. It gets cunts comfortable. And it's saying it, then you know what I mean.
And it doesn't matter. Like we'll talk about things with, say, Hayley, that are nothing to do with DJing, that we just would talk about ourselves.
Aye.
And I think that like lets them, if they're doing a 5 other podcasts, they're probably going to get asked roughly all the same shit. So we want people when they listen to ours for it to be a mad different version of that person. And like I think as well, say somebody like you, McVicker or Hayley, like they'll get to come on, and if they get to show their personality rather than like, I was playing Ibiza and it was class, and I was playing here and it was class, and it just gets to, and I think as well it's good for them because if you invest in like the person, you're more likely to like their shit, like whatever they actually do, if you like the person.
Especially if they're in the public eye, mate, it shines a unique perspective on them because everybody can ask, where do you come from, what have you done? We can all ask questions, get the same answer, but if you end up having a conversation, you tell a story and they go, oh, by the way, and then you get there sharing things, it's like only you can really have your experiences. Whereas to have them relate to that, it's not as if like they can go on James English and he'll tell you the exact same experience you had, maybe similar, but it'll get a different result off it, know what I mean? That's what I kind of wanted to do for the start of my podcast, because when I ended up doing it, I just ended up hosting it myself by accident. I had no plans to do it, but then I'd always geared up shit in my life. I would patched it, started something and patched it when I go off decent. And I was like, no, I'm sticking with this. So at first, I kind of was like, right, I just want to make this like a conversation, like a fly in the wall. If I never called it as premeditated part, I'd have called it kitchen chat. So you get an idea what I was trying to get with.
That was kind of where we were going with the Gaff thing and all.
It was like we wanted people to feel like they were in somebody's house just sitting with them rather than, you know, like, oh, this is now an interview, and like we want to go for that mad laid back sort of the way we would talk if the cameras weren't there, and I think that's much more interesting than like a mad, so this happened and how was that and this happened, and obviously you need to go through that, like that's why the guest's on, but as long as it's no just that and you're going off in tangents where they're going to tell a story that they've never told anywhere else.
Exactly, man. You get much more out of it. See, I've got a list of questions, man, but these are just like a guideline. I'll ask all these questions, but I'll go off in tangents.
It's like we just use it as like a mad structure for the episode, and then I think that's what you learn as well in that first year. You'll be pure rigid with the questions, but then you realise like the best shit comes, maybe you'll ask a question and then they'll reply something and you'll be like, fuck, I didn't know that, talk more about that, and you've not got it wrote down, but it's all about mastering that wee bit of like, right, knowing when to ask people to go further, know when to, alright, that topic's died down a bit, I'll move on now, and you learn that as you go, I think.
Aye, for sure, man. So Jamie, you say like this has been your first outing, kind of like and onto like the kind of public forum as such. You've had people recognise you. How was that experience for you, getting people recognise you, getting photos and that?
Class, mate. I get raging if I don't get recognised.
Annoying, innit?
If I walk through Tesco and nobody says, alright mate, love the podcast, mate, I get pure fuming, punching holes in the walls and that. No, I like it, mate, because like I feel like it's kind of validation in it. I like what you're doing's actual out and about. It's not just like throwaway thing, if you know what I mean. So
definitely, because it reminds you, because it's easy to look at numbers on my screen, but when somebody actually, a human being, comes up to you, you know what I mean, and says to you, listen, I watch your podcast, you're like, that's actually some cunt. It feels weird almost, you're like, you forget people watch it. Well, me personally, because when somebody says, I was loving that and that, can I watch your shit all the time, and you're like, fucking hell, it's you're on the other end of that screen, I'm making this, and then you're like on the receiving end.
You're just watching it as like a review of yourself, but you're not thinking somebody's like tuned into that, you're
exactly.
Mate, I had to stop, like, because I used to always like just go, see if I was going to like Tesco or something, or just to show, I'd always go in like mad Ugg slippers and like fucking jammies and that, mate. And I like now I actually think sometimes like the amount of time some cunt in Tesco's like, what's happening, mate? I just didn't. I need to get dressed now. I need to get dressed every day, mate. It's murder.
I feel struggled with that at first. Like I felt like a mad level of like privacy had just been wiped for me. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I could walk into the town or be on a night out and like nobody would say anything to me, but in the back of my head I'm like, there's always this chance that somebody's going to walk by me and go like, and you need to, I feel like I'm always having to be prepared in my head for that to happen, you know what I mean? And it's a way where you can't fully, even though I don't worry about it, I can't fully relax and just be a mad unknown face. There's always a chance somebody's going to say something.
Mate, see on like Wednesday there, I've even told you this, and I was in the gym, right, and a boy came up with me. He came in with a dog, right, he came in with a wee Sharpie, and I was like, that's
in the gym,
aye, mate, must have just been, he was just walked in, he was like Sam Trips and that, and he fucking, I was sitting sitting clapping my dog, and then he was like looking at it, he's like that, and I was like, pure narcissistic to be like, oh, he's got to ask. He's pure looking, he's like that, and he's like, did you? And I was like, and he's like, used to walk in foot asylum. I was like, aye, mate, I did,
Fucking I did,
He's like, I was the fucking regional manager or something. I was like,
fuck's sake, so you didn't even fucking used to walk alongside him, you just walk for him.
Mate, see, I was at Riverside, obviously, to the festival, so just down the road and
that.
I
can't always get mixed up.
I'm always like,
aye.
So I was at that, and like, see the people that are at that is like everybody who would know our shit, right? Because obviously it's just cunts getting out on that. So I was having to like stop quite often there and like, talk to people and that, and it was all sound. It was brand new. Like sometimes I'll get a bit of anxiety about going to a place like that because I'm like, I just want to just be able to just go and just. I wish I could just turn it off and just be the mad, be the mad unknown sort of entity and like enjoy the thing for what it is rather than like. But it's nothing against people that stop me because it's like it's such a good feeling and you never feel bad about it, but you do wish you could just switch it off because I remember it kept happening and it got to a point I was stoning with my pals and they were drinking and two lasses were sitting down sort of behind us eating my hot dog with onions and that in it, and they were like eating chips and that, right? And they were pure looking at us, and because it had been happening all night I was like looking back at them as if like I was looking back at them ready for them to go kind of like, I fucking know your face, because they were looking at me that much, and I was like looking at them, and one of them just done that. What the fuck are you looking at?
Mate, that's the thing I worry about me. See, when I go out and that, it's kind of right fair. Just see if somebody comes up and goes, alright, I watch your shit, or one of the ones, that's sound. Yeah. See when cunts are just looking at you, and then but you don't know, do they recognise me, or is that cunt growling at me? And you don't know, I don't really know.
Both of them look the exact same.
Exactly, the same look you get, and you feel like just going, because you don't want to go, do you recognise me? Nah, mate, any spare change? Aye, mate, so I think it's the only time it kind of bugs me is see when I'm in a rush. See if I'm in a rush, always bump into cunts because I stay in Govan. Every cunt knows me down here, and where I need to go, like get to the subway and that, I need to. It's pure throng with cunts down there. I don't know if you've seen it on the way up. It's always jumping with cunts. Always end up talking to cunts, and I don't want to fucking patch cunts, but I'm always like on the go because anytime I'm out the house, I'm going somewhere, and I'm always on a mission. But I think it's just. I think you just need to accept because cunts are never going to unrecognise you now. Like now, once cunts recognise you're out there.
No, I think as well, but right, it's like I think I had a mad complex with it because I was like, right, obviously it's not like a level where you're like, oh, we're famous, but it's like a level of that, right? It's like on the spectrum. That we're on the spectrum, right? And so I'm like, fuck, I need to do, like, this is the shit, like, say if you're like fucking Kanye West or something, this is the shite side of all that, but the good side is, you've got hundreds of money, but like the new, we're all dealing with the shite hanging it,
And we're skint.
And we're all skint. You know what I mean? Like, we're no getting the mad. It's alright, I've got a fucking mansion. You know what I mean?
Aye, it's like Jim Jeffries, he says it's like fucking one thing being rich and famous, try being poor and famous.
Mate, that's it, mate. It's so difficult.
I just tell myself like, listen, this is what you wanted, like, it's going to get a point, it's going to be, you're going to be banging. You know what I mean? But you think of it like Leo DiCaprio and fucking Michael Jackson, like, Leonardo DiCaprio's got disguises and all that, so he can go to the show.
Prosthetic shit.
Like, he just sometimes they go out with these disguises just to walk about, because think of them, like, they couldn't walk most places without cunts surround them, because it's weird at a kind of stage, if you use the word famous, whatever you want to use, where we can walk down the street, you'll get maybe cunts glancing at you, some cunts I know his face and cunts recognise you, they're like unmistakable and nobody's letting them walk by them. Cunts might recognise him, go like that, no saying, but nobody's letting him walk, like he has to walk down the street with security in him because cunts are trying to get to him and all that.
Like cunts might be slightly like, oh what, like because they've watched us, but then when it's like somebody like that, like I don't know if you watched the Last Dance of Michael Jordan thing on Netflix, and it was like the videos of him coming out of hotel rooms and it's just and it's, you're like, oh my god, I don't want, like, nobody, you don't want that, like, even though he's so famous. I think there's a level where you want to get to where it's like enough money, enough fame, but you don't want it to go any further than that, because it, like, the money just stops mattering because you've no privacy. You can't do any way the money. Everything you do needs to be pure private, and you can't just blend into crowds and shit. It's mad.
Everything's under scrutiny, I know. Everything you do. If you fuck up, if you fucking end up out mad with or something, some cunts taking a fuck. Even look at like Scott Brown and that. They're not pure mega famous, but they end up in a night out, man. It's fucking all the papers are getting slaughtered.
And people like are looking for something on them because they're like, I want to be like attached to this almost. Do you know what I mean?
Defos, man. You're out because I remember I read Mike Tyson's autobiography. And they would be cunts, he'd be out in a night out or out for a meal or something, and he'd get two cunts just coming up mad tingers on and all that shit, and then they'd just start getting wide with him and all that, then just starting causing shite, and then he'd maybe flip a table or something, then he'd get like a lawyer's letter 2 days later saying they're filing a lawsuit against you, saying you attacked him and all that, and then his like fucking management or whatever, they'd be like, listen, just give him hush money, because if this gets through the courts, it's going to cost you more money, it's going to be all the papers.
And make a mad example of you know that.
So he's like, just give him, so he was just getting, cunts were just coming up starting shite, and he was giving him 50 grand, and you think about that, and no wonder just, you would have your heavy guard up, know what I mean?
That's a good idea for a new job, by the way. Just going winding him up once a year, mate.
Chatting Lewis Capaldi's door and all that, throwing shit in. Hit me, go.
That's like nowadays, I know, because you've got social media, so if something's in the paper, it's in the paper could say what they want, but you've got social media, you've got a constant commentary on what you're doing. And what social media is great for the likes of us, because us try to get our kind of content, we'd never go out on the telly. Not actually, you had to go through agencies and all that. It was
telly used to be a mad special thing. There was like 5 channels.
It was like the only thing, but now like even. Like, I watch stuff, but I always find myself like coming in and I'll just go on like YouTube. Do you know what I mean? Like I very rarely will come in and be like, I'm going to watch the telly. You know what I mean? I'll always be like fucking, I'll just, because YouTube's obviously tailored towards what you like, because it's your algorithm, and you're like, oh, what's that? Oh, that's interesting. You're learning shit, and it's all shorter. And I feel like that's the way people's mindsets are these days. Like, people don't want to sit and, alright, they might binge a mad series on Netflix, but people don't want to sit for an hour and a half and 2 hours and watch a movie and like wait for it to get good and that. They don't have that attention span, so it's all pure dopamine hits, man.
That's exactly that.
I watched a mad video like recently, and it was talking about like the death of like old media and that, like we were talking about kind of thing, and it was like saying like, see even things like TV channels, see like Sky and BBC and all that, it was like, see when somebody says to you, oh, I watched this heavy banging programme all night, when was the last time you done, what channels it on, like what days it on, mate?
What did you watch it on?
It's always just Netflix or Amazon Prime.
What did you get out on Netflix?
Disney Plus
streamer that.
So that's, but even that shit's starting to get like for TikTok and YouTube. I think more cunts probably sit and watch TikTok and they like Amazon Prime. Know what I mean?
It's catered for cunts' attention spans, because you see TikTok as well, man. Because people don't realise, you just think, I see somebody that doesn't use TikTok, you just think maybe it's like another Facebook, another Instagram, just cunts posting their own shit. But you actually go into it, there's like full scale documentaries, obviously broken down shit. I go and watch it, all true crime things, man.
Part 1, part 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's fucking, don't even act, it's fucking murder. Have to go in the comments and find the next part.
But you feel a bit better, like instead of watching the full thing on YouTube, I like watching it in TikTok, going through the 9 parts.
Well, that's the thing, see if it was in the wanner, you're less likely to sit and watch it, but if it's on the parts, you're more likely to sit and tune into the full bit.
Because you're like, oh, I can just patch this at any, because when you're watching it you're like, there's only fucking 20 seconds left to go. It's a mad brain
psychological thing,
because it's when it cuts off you're like, I know what happens next. But if it was like if it was on like a linear kind of like pan, know what I mean, you'd be like, fucking, you'd go on your phone or something.
You'd be on TikTok while watching it.
But that's the thing with YouTube, mate, is basically interactive television, because you decide, you're not sitting going like, it's a telly shite tonight, you're like, what am I watching?
I want to watch a monkey driving a motor, mate.
And it'll be there.
Stay on me.
And that's exactly it, mate. And you think, like, mate, Wayne's especially, mate, that's just all YouTube. So you think of the stuff we make with our own YouTube, we've effectively got our own television channel.
It is. It's like your own. It's like,
that's why it's called a channel and all.
I suppose I never even think about that, but it's like
I'm going to start calling it Reilly's Gaff Network or something.
LGN. I'm watching that network.
What's that?
So obviously, Evan, I first seen you when you were doing your comedy videos and that. And what was it inspired you to start doing stuff like that?
Honestly, I remember I started them when I was in the railway, and I started them because I would go on my break and I would look through, like, when you're on your break, you're like, right, stories and just watching shite, and it would all just be like, on my lunch today at work, or like out a walk, or like, and I'd be like, I wish somebody was just doing something that I could just laugh at for like 10 minutes, know what I mean, or just something stupid. So I wish something would just pop up that was like a bit weird or something that I could watch. And I remember thinking, I'm going to start doing that, like I'm going to start posting things in work, just mad voices and shit. It's just so people,
things that you would want to watch.
Just so like if somebody's having a mad day where they're bored or whatever, just seeing that's just a mad shock to their system. They're like, even if they're like, look at this fucking fan, you know what I mean? It's like something that pure livened up their day a bit. And I remember I was posting them and I was just driving about. I used to drive a big fucking forklift, the actual big ones. And I used to be driving about and I'd drive it up the back of the yard and sit and like act out mad sketches, and just I would film a bit and be like, right, what would they reply to that? And then do that, and I'd be like, right, what would they say back to that? And I wouldn't even have an end in sight the way I would maybe day one knew. It was just like, what would they reply? And I just kept it going. It just kept me entertained. And I remember what would happen is, like, obviously it was a story, so it would disappear. And I remember like people started mailing me pure, where can I watch that video and that? And I was like, it was a story. And they were like, mate, you should put them all together and post it so I can watch it and that. And like,
mate, I think I was one of the people that said that.
And it was like, I remember I'd done that and I saved them from my archive and I started putting them together, and then people, I was like, then people were like getting behind them and that, and I was like, oh fuck, I might actually be alright at doing this. And I just sort of took it from there. But during lockdown was like, obviously when I went to Vietnam, like, as we were saying about the people going abroad, and you just lose your mad culture almost because you're having to embed yourself in a different one. I watched videos of myself talking. Like I had a YouTube channel when I was in Vietnam about helping people, like, so when you come here, do this and do that, and you avoid this and avoid that, and see the way I'm talking it, I'm like, fucking, that doesn't sound like me. I'm pure, yeah, hey guys, so yeah, like, because I've been so used to like catering my voice to like maybe Americans I'd meet or Canadians or whatever. My voice pure changed a bit, and then I remember when I felt like I had pure no patter in me at all, man. It pure drained the life at me. It was fucking dreadful. And then I get back and it was like lockdown, because I had to come back cause of COVID, because everything shut. And I came back and I remember it was lockdown, and I was like making wee things again and doing daft shit, and I was like, no, what? Now is the time to, like, if I'm going to try and make these and grow my page and shit, now's the time, because everybody's inside on their phones. Nobody's going to be on their phones more than the new. So I was like, fuck it, once a day I'll just go a walk and come up with an idea and make a video, and then that's when it sort of all took off for there, sort of thing.
Right, so was that your kind of method? Just go for a walk and you would just come up with something?
I used to like, I came back, because when we were in Vietnam, mate, we used to get a fucking, when we were there, we didn't know what the laws were like for like smoking or anything, or we didn't know. And then the teachers in our class were like that. I've got a woman who drops off weed to your door, right? And she gives you a receipt with it. And I was like, what? And he was like, she's called Miss Money. And I was like, right, sound. So he gave me the Facebook page, and it was like a mad ordering thing. And I remember there was a thing that said Cambodian, and it was like a half ounce for like £15, right? So we were just smoking Cambodian weed all the time in Vietnam, right? Just, it was the worst shit you've ever smoked in your life, but it was enough to like get by with. And then when I came back, obviously it's so much better here, so I would get a bit, because obviously I've nothing to do, do you know what I mean? Because I had it in my head when I was coming back, I was like, I'll just stop smoking, I'm not doing that, blah blah blah, I'll come back, pure, get the headset, I'll get to you and then I came back, and I remember I was getting it, and I was like, oh man, it was pure knocking my pan in, because I was smoking fucking dog shit, know what I mean? But,
Literally.
And what I'd do is I would like roll a wee joint, go a walk, and just be like, just come up with something in like a situation, or like I just developed a mad thing. I'd go a walk, and it was pure quiet because nobody was even going walks in that at one stage. Like, people were scared to leave their house and shit. So I'd have this big walk, and I'd be listening in my earphones. I would be like recording shit as I was walking, and then like I would listen to it when I get back, and then I would like sort it for there. And I just get in this habit of like developing mad characters, like the mad Fraz, the Bears Den boys, and like the mad like a soprano sort of character.
Aye.
And then once you develop mad characters, like, you know this, like you're like, you know, you're like, what situation can I put them in now? Do you know what I mean? And you're like, how would they react to this? And what would be funny in this situation to happen? And it just grew for there, sort of.
Aye, brilliant, man. So, see, when you were doing them, because you did get a lot of views after the back of them, and you were doing them quite consistently. Obviously, you end up with quite a good following after the back of it. But I've noticed since you've been doing the podcast, you've not been doing them as much.
Nah, I think it's like, I don't know what it is. It's just my mind's so in the podcast that I'm like, if I think of a funny idea, I'm like, I'll talk about that in the podcast, instead of like going, how can I make that a video? But then like, see if I go like, I'll go like 3 months and I'll be like, can I still do this? And I start having mad doubts, like I've lost the mad spark that I can't, and I'm like doubting myself, like, can I even do this? Can I do this anymore? And then like I'll pure try and make one, and if I always get like, if I'm like, I'll make one, I always get one out and it'll be decent or whatever, but I always, every 3 or 4 months, if I don't do one, I start thinking, have I lost like the ability to create this mad thing? Because if I...
Do you get into a zone with them, but you were saying, mind? Like, if you have been doing them more often, it's like become half easier.
Defo. But then I think that's how... it's just with the podcast now, my mind's so on the podcast that I just don't really think as much about it. And then I start, see when I daytime make one, I start going, I'm fucking shit at this, man, I can't do this anymore.
You overthink it to a point, man.
And you're like, trying to like be yourself too much. You're being a mad caricature of yourself.
And then that's when it just loses its substance, doesn't it, man?
Aye.
Was there ever any plans to maybe get into like comedy, like stand-up and that kind of such? Has that ever interested you?
I don't know, man, because like, I remember there was a guy, I was at it's pure random, I was at a cycle with my pal Paige up by Glasgow Green and all that, see that Clyde walkway bit, fake like canvas slang all the way into the tune that, and I remember I came back, and I think you'll probably know him, I don't know if he's been on this podcast, Mikey Motion.
Mikey.
So I didn't know who he was, and he was like, you Reilly or something, and I was like, and I thought he was just somebody that watched the videos, but he was like, I run a fucking stand-up night and all that, you should come down and get a try and blah blah blah, and I was like, should I? There's been a few times where a boy I know came back, he was in Spain, he came back and he started a comedy night in somewhere, and he was like, I've watched your videos, do you want to come and try it? And I actually got offered to do stand up at the drive-in cinema. Really? So like I would be through the radio doing, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
Where would you be set up?
Fuck no.
And another motor.
I
think I would be like at the front where the screen is, but like I was like, there's no way I'm doing that. Like, you need to be able to see people's faces and that. Do you know what I mean?
That'd be a weird fucking sitting saying something, and be like 2 seconds later, just cunts laughing in a motor at the fucking.
I think I know. Like,
you just don't hear it. All the windies are up.
Cunts are getting pumped in the motor.
I'm like, so guy, what's in a bar, right? But I thought about it, and then I don't know. It's just I've just never. The times I've thought about like what would say I try and think of like a minute or something, it's so hard for me to picture like what sort of reaction what I'm saying would get on a stage. Whereas with videos, I can do it and watch it and go, shit, or like, do you know what I mean? You get that mad safety net, whereas live is like, I think that takes balls, man.
Definitely, and I think it's a different type of comedy. Like the likes of me, I like doing wee sketches and that, and I enjoy doing them for the laugh at, man. But I've tried stand up and I don't know. It just wasn't the same. It's good when you tell a joke and cunts laugh, but see sitting writing a joke and then, I don't know, I can write a joke And then I'm like, no, it could be funnier, and add to it, and then it'll be funny for this. And time you go, you're like, what the fuck, man? And you're like, no, I'll take this out and add it. And then I'm like, it's sad.
It's too much to think about almost beforehand.
Mate, it's funny. I'm usually, see if I'm ever funny, it's funny for something I've just said off the top of my head. See if I say it and write it down, then by the time I've got
it loses something, doesn't it?
Aye, defos, man, it's too rehearsed.
It's like being baked and watching like a film and like thinking like they're just all actors saying their lines now and that. Do you know what I mean? You like, it takes you to that mad, I don't know, like, cause you know that it's hard to perform it naturally if you've been at it for 3 years. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
Rather than on a video, if you're like tap off the top of your head, you're like, oh, imagine I just said that at this bit, and you just do it rather than like sitting on something for months and being like, no, I'll change that word, no, I'll move that there.
Aye, plus as well, see if you like, because sometimes I'll script like, the videos I do and that, but see once I'm like, right, that sound, I'll film it, then put it out. There'll not be much time in between, and if cunts don't like it, it's like I'm not gonna take the video down, the video's out. Whereas if you think about the time you get to a gig and you say a joke and then it doesn't go down well because you've overthought it, you still get that delivery. Whereas you can record something, you can do it as right, that looks good. Whereas you've got one shot,
one chance. I can't about no, I can do that better. Right? No wait, I've done that so much better last night. Right? Just I'll come back out. Right?
Damn mad rewinding noise.
You can fucking just cut shit out of a podcast and that's
the thing.
Pure respect, cunts that day stand up, man, like Mark and shit. I'm just like, takes pure belief in yourself to do that, I think.
I've been wanting to do something like, and I say to Evan, he's gonna do it.
Join the force.
Yeah, no, mate. I've been wanting to actually. You've been set up here. No, I've been wanting to fucking like write something down, like a mad an actual thing, like an actual sitcom, near enough. I've had like mad ideas about it because I was thinking like, I've not even said this in our podcast or anything, but
exclusive.
There we go, man.
But I was saying like, because I've got like this idea for something that could be funny for me and him and like other people like Sean and Ben and that today, and I've said to them and they're right up for it. And I was thinking like, all these mad video ideas that we come up with could just be in like something that was a longer form or something. Do you know what I mean?
Like make them all make sense together in a story. Sort of thing,
so they're actually going to like. So I've been thinking about doing that, mate. But as you said, sitting down and actually having to write shit, it's hard, mate. Because you get too like if you doubt yourself once, mate, it's everything's fucked.
It's too easy to fucking oversaturate it and you overthink it, man. I kind of learned to just write it. And then write it to a point where I'm happy with it, then leave it, because I feel as if the more I overthink it, the more you dilute it and the more you're forcing it. Like, you notice even when you're recording videos, you know yourself, see when you do it, the easier, the simple, see the videos you just record in the one, that's usually ones that do the best, because it's pure, it's in its purest form. So I've kind of tried to do that where I don't do as many takes or something unless I've got it right once. That usually does it. I'll write it down and I'll keep it that way, try and keep it as close to the original idea as I can.
See as well, like, I don't want to ask you too much because obviously I think the plan is for you to come on early, so I'm here trying not to ask too much shit. But do you find, because I'll probably forget this by the time we do yours, see like you're talking about like writing a joke down and you're like, fuck, I'll change that. Like we're talking about making a sketch and you're like, oh, shoot that again. What's that like for your music? Are you the same way with the lyrics and that, or are you much more like boom boom, that goes there, that goes there?
Well, see, the thing is with music, see, in terms of lyrics, you know what's it's like a jigsaw. I can write lyrics to a tune and I'll know deep down, but something inside me is like, that's not right, and I could have it all finished and I'll be like, nah, put it to the side. Then once you've got it, just one day it'll be a light bulb moment. You're like, that's what fits there. And once you put it in, it's solidified. It doesn't change. That's me personally.
Because I'm probably like sketches. It's like a fucking ocean. You know what I mean? You can do anything. You can deliver it anyway. Whereas your lyrics have got to fit in this space.
Exactly.
And that.
So once it fits with a song, once it fits, it fits. And see, I've wrote tunes before and I've done it and I just know it's like a part of me just knows, it's like a subconscious level, like, nah, I could do better than that.
It just means you've got like an ear for it, innit?
That's exactly it. No, I mean, been listening to tunes all my life, but I was like, I don't know, it's weird. It's when I do tunes, I try and write a tune to like a tune that I would like to hear. So I've been writing tunes a lot longer than I've been writing sketches. You know what I mean? And see, I feel as if I've got into like my sketches don't do pure amazing, but some of them do alright, but I enjoy doing them. So it's trying to stay true to yourself in the sense of, when you try to start creating stuff for other people, how they'll perceive it, that me personally, my stuff suffers because I overthink it.
And you're catering, you're like, what would that person like? So it's hard, you can't even, and you'll never know that anyway, do you know what I mean? You'll never, even if like you're reading all your comments, you're like, oh, that one was shite, fuck it, I better just stick to this one and do this. And it's no even, you're never going to get on the right path doing it that way, because you can't read people's minds.
There's a director called David Lynch. He done like fucking like the Elephant Man and a Razorhead and all that mad old kind of moody films and that, and he says like, if you do something for yourself and fail, you die once. If you do something for somebody else and fail, you die twice. Because like you shouldn't have been putting
You sold yourself, basically.
Exactly, mate.
It's true. Plus as well, see if you do it for somebody else and put it out and it does shite, you're like, fuck, I should have. You
need to trust yourself, don't you?
And then you're just like, fuck, I wish I just stayed true to myself. See if you do it for yourself and put it in and go, fuck it, I enjoyed it.
Exactly. And it's got merit in it because you've done something you've enjoyed.
And look at all the people that have actually excelled, even in podcasting. Like I don't think Joe Rogan once ever deterred for like what he wanted to do, and that's why he is where he is, because he doesn't just get you on because you're famous. He gets you on because he's dying to have a conversation with you, and it shows every time.
It's organic as fuck, and people, that authenticity shines through, man, because people on the dark, people can see through the bullshit, man.
Especially like long form. Like the boy that done the ayahuasca, he was saying to me as well, it was interesting, like, you can't keep a mask on for like an hour and a half, like, or 2 hours. Let's see long form sitting. See if you make wee videos and sketches and that, you can hide who you really are, but see sitting for 2 hours, you might be able to keep it up for 15-20 minutes, say like, but eventually you need to start being yourself. I always think that's so good. Like, that's why I know that it's any difference in gratefulness, but I always love when people are like, I watch the podcast rather than like seeing your mad videos, because it's like the podcast is like who you are. Do you know what I mean? So it's like they actually like you for who you are.
They're connecting with you.
See, talk about like people who are just like kind of faking that on podcasts. I sent you one.
Calling it?
No, it's a mad American one, so it doesn't really matter that much. But it's that one. I think it's on Barstool. But it's like they always do conspiracy theories and that, right? And it's just 2 wee guys, but they go like, have you seen this thing? And it's a Mandela effect. And the other guy's like, no, what is it? And it's like, it's always clips I always see, and it just looks pure fake. But
as if they've made the podcast for the clip rather than...
That's exactly it, mate. And they do the same shit we do at Deep Fried, so I pure don't want to ever get to, like, do you know what I mean?
You're making, like, you're a TikTok clips channel that does podcasts rather than a podcast that has TikTok clips.
Definitely, man, definitely. And see, in terms of, when you start trying, like today, kind of try to structure and script it, it's almost akin to doing stand-up where you're scripting something to a degree. But the thing is, let's see if you compare like what we're doing to stand-up and that, we've not got that immediate validation, like, right, that worked. Once you put it out, you can only say it once. Or you can say it once and then you're not going to know until cunts say it like, that was shit. You're not going to do the same podcast and rehearse it. Whereas a joke, you're kind of, you
don't send it to like a focus group or
something.
Like,
should we put this out? I always think that as well. Like, obviously it's that mad immediate like validation you get with like stand up or live stuff or whatever, but the way we do it, like, you'll come out a podcast, you'll be like, that was fucking amazing, and then you'll post it and you'll be like, oh, like, maybe I was just heavy baked or something. But
or the other way about.
Like, we just done one, like, an episode, like, listening to Dissies and that, and we came out it and we're like, it was like, usually we'll phone each other like driving home and be like, what do you think of that? And we're like, it was good, just another one ticking L and that. And then we watched it back and we're like, oh, this was much better than it's all because you just go off how you felt during it, but know what actual comes across in the camera, I feel like.
Especially see the ones you always think, that was fucking shite, that one. You're like, I'm not even want to put this out, and you put it out and it pure flies, man. And cunts are loving it and they're laughing, howling. You're like, fuck, what have I missed?
I know. It's weird. It is weird. You always think you'll be able to tell just based off your feeling, but that's not necessarily the case.
You don't realise who's watching and how cunts connect, because cunts are probably, they'll sit and watch it and they'll be like, I was having this same conversation last week, that's fucking mental, they're talking about it, they'll be sending it to their pals, like, check these cunts, it's just shit like that, know what I mean? You forget how far it reaches.
I always think about that, you were saying obviously your tunes and that must be, because see, like, tunes, every cunt can like interpret things their own way, do you know what I mean? So have you ever, like, I've always wanted to ask something that makes tunes, have you ever put something out and it's had like a lyric in it that meant something completely different, and cunts are like, oh, that's class, meaning that, know what I mean?
Like a double meanings.
It's always
and you didn't even realise.
Cunts will pick up on certain lyrics and you'll be like, it's some you just write and you don't think too much of it, and it's the ones you're like, I want cunts to hear this lyric, it's fucking dynamite, and then it just flies their cunts nuts. It just means that, but they just don't connect with it.
Because everybody's different.
It's the same thing with like the sketches like we're talking about. See the ones you're like, you'll come in like this and I'll shoot that again, no, I'll make sure I'm wearing a different hat, and like it's a pure operation. They're the ones that cunts will just like, but then you do one that's just like, you might not post it, and that they're the ones that it's just like, it's like they can sense that mad authenticity for it.
I like that wee demonstration there. You missed
You
it,
did.
man. You swapped the hats.
I can't see
Mate,
fuck all
you-
at the side of this, mate. I'm pure like that, man.
It's like having a spaceship in your nap.
I know. Mate, the amount of headwear you've got back here.
Mate, I forgot I had that pose hat. I've got a
Aye,
fucking
this is
a
quite-
judge's wig and all. I
Did
feel
ha-
missed a trick when I had Lee Sutherland
Did
over
Big
it.
Lino wear that? No.
That?
Did Tino bring that up?
No, I didn't. I
Mate, I've got all the black on and all that. I know, I actually don't.
know, you better not leave with that, man. You'll end up getting attacked.
I've actually been like cunts have asked if I'm CID a good few times. I must have a mad hang about me,
Super
mate.
dry jacket.
I've had it before, I know, man.
Have you? Aye.
My teeth?
Aye.
I have
Polish
straight
teeth.
teeth. I don't want to smack head. Like,
You're tall in that, but you look like you'd be
Aye.
like,
ready
you'd
to
be a
fling
good
something in
Polish, mate.
handcuffs. I'm a lying bastard. But so what do you want to achieve with your podcast?
Millions.
Success.
I don't know, man. It's like, I think we want to be able to have a podcast that we can almost like live off and like grow things off. Like we want it to get to the stage where we're almost like, we would have a podcast and then we'll have things like branching off. So we'll go and do like your documentary. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Aye.
a mad side project where you go and do a wee mini series out and about, or you'll go and visit somewhere, or
Aye.
do something. Like, we want to grow it in terms of like going out and about and doing, building different shit. So it's merely a
production.
a channel rather than just a podcast. And then we want that to get to a stage where if we grow to that extent, we can say like, say those two wee guys in their house doing a podcast and they're not getting any views, but we're like, they're actual funny, man. Like we could take them and put them onto our channel and like have a mad network, like basically a podcast.
The same
but,
way,
up
the
and
same way,
coming.
like Deep Fried's a version of Reilly's Gaff. It could be like, do you know what I mean? All these different kind of shows
See,
that are
kinda
on.
like, you ever heard of the No Jumper podcast?
Aye.
So kind of like that, where they've got like the Shark Tank, then you've got that Adam 22. He comes on. They've got all
Aye.
different kind of hosts and shit.
Aye, but
Exactly.
it's like a mad. Aye.
Tiny Meat Gang do it. Have you heard of them? TMG. They're good. They've got it, and they've got like a mad like crypto podcast under them, and then they've got one a Lassie hosts, and then they've got like one about sports and all that all under there, like, and it's all in their studios.
So it's all under their like banner, and they've got a production studio, so like they would use their studio, so all the podcasts that are under their network like have the same look, sorta. Do you know what I mean? And it's a win-win, because obviously you're taking on a podcast, and also like that podcast is now getting much more exposure than it probably would have initially. So it's a bigger chance for them to grow. So I mean that's
like right away in the future.
ages away. That's like, but we want to just keep growing it and
And just being able to
doing
fun
different
shit.
shit. But we want to enjoy it. Like I think that's what we need to remember. Like I think it's simply just remember to just keep enjoying it, because when we enjoy it, I think that's when people react best to it. Like when we're buzzing about it, that's when everybody else is buzzing about it. And if we're just putting an episode out that's like, aye, they've got 50k followers, we'll get them on. Oh, but did you look into them? Aye, a wee bit. Aye, thought can't be Arsenal. Like, and then like
So
that
Paul
day,
Breach.
and that day you're driving up, you're like, oh fuck, how's this going to go and all that. Like we want to feel like pure buzzing to have somebody on and be like, we know this is going to be a good chat, and hopefully that just makes it grow and continue to grow.
Just try to focus on the content itself, and then everything else is kind of
Hopefully it falls into
extracurricular.
place. Aye, that's
Aye,
it.
man.
Aye, definitely. That's the way to do it, innit, man?
Yeah.
Plus, as well, so is it kind of like a network you're want to start in terms of like all different podcasts, or what is it, as you say, you talk about a series? Is there going to be a series branching off that? Hopefully, in the
the series and that, like we are planning to
sitcom
do.
even.
We're so that would be like
That's
a
like
side
a
thing for you,
completely
innit?
different thing,
But-
kinda, but it's going to.
Like we done an episode called Scheme Olympics, right? And it was like wasn't schemes, it was like towns and shit, obviously, like, say it was like Govan or like Paisley or something, and we would take a bunch of them and then just put them in a ranking, just be like, never been there, fuck, don't even know anybody for there, like shit seems shite. And then like, well, like, we done it with Paisley, right? Because we'll feel like nowhere near Paisley, so we hadn't even really been to Paisley a lot, and we're like, fuck knows, probably shite, put it down the bottom. And then people are like, Paisley's fucking amazing and all that, right? So we're like, it'd be a good idea if we done a series where everywhere we've ranked, we go there for the day and like walk about and like interview people, like, would you like about Paisley and that, and like just try and meet mad characters and go for like a scran there and like go somewhere
and have different
Aye.
categories.
Aye,
of,
you
like,
kinda
Aye,
hang
and even if like if we were doing, like, say we came to Govan, like, we could meet up with you and you would take us a book because you're fake here. Aye, and like, because Spexy in Coatbridge. Spexy's obviously the mayor of Coatbridge, you know what I mean? So he was like, I'll take us a book Coatbridge, I'll show you everywhere and that. So we wanted to, like, more wee series like that, you know what I mean?
I quite like the fact that, like, we put at number 1, like, the tap scheme on the full thing was Poso. Said that's like the perfect scheme. So it'll be funny going there and getting heavy bullied out and being like, no, it's still the best.
You better watch what equipment you take out. In Govan, mate, me and Ravi were doing a thing. Salvador Dafties, what about Salvador Dali painting? Fucking say, would you buy this painting for so many million quid and all that? And we had like a camera and shit, mate, and we were interviewing a couple of cunts down at the job centre, obviously a couple of addicts, and I seen two of them whispering to each other. Then one of them was like, aye mate, it was after it, man, they went away, and one of them was like, aye mate, he was fucking trying to get his pal up for robbing the camera.
That is the thing.
It was a Friday, you know what I mean? So cunts were skin like that, fucking burn.
Just fucking spent all their fucking
gyro money.
Mate, we done a thing with like Sean, Ben and Paul Dock for it was called like High Rise Baggers.
I think I seen that.
So we done like an episode of that with him, or like a video of that, and we were at I was wanting to go to Springburn. I was like, well, the Springburn flat's not, it'll be cool because that's obviously where I'm staying. Like, I think your bird was like, what, Balgrell Flats? No, you're not going there.
She's like, you can't go there and do that.
With
like,
a camera
something
and that.
will happen there, you know what I mean? Like, she's felt that way, I know. And
but then we went to Toonhead, and we were like, can I just go at the bottom of these flats and doing like the wee sketch bit and that, and then but then there was people always coming in and out of the flat, so we had to stop recording. We couldn't like shut it off, obviously. And there was a cunt with a bike, and he just kept like going round in circles.
I pure circling, isn't it? He was
wearing jeans on the bike,
he
mate.
He kept shouting, "What's this? Scotland's most wanted." Aye, and then he would like cycle. It was like a pure wee boy's bike he had. I had fake Gucci belt and that, and then he would cycle to like the other flats across the road and cycle back and all that. And we're like, what is this cunt doing?
Obviously, like Punting Green or something.
Aye. So it's a mad way where anything can kind of happen outdoors. Know what I mean? You need to be a bit.
The thing is, like, if we were out, and as opposed to that being a mad written sketch, if we were out and about in Toonhead, we'd end up talking to that cunt.
Aye, and be like, we up to today,
showing
mate,
these mad characters that are in schemes, know what I mean? That's what I'm
you can include them in that, because cunts like that, the kind of cunts, it's like, see when you go with the camera and you're looking to interview cunts, see the cunts you would body swerve in a good day, you're like, I want you.
There you go,
we done a video, like, I was talking about, you actually know what I'm talking about as well, because of the Govan Fair, right? That's a thing here,
the Canvas Line.
Aye, the gala is like the gala day.
The gala day.
Aye, so we done a video there, and like, Jamie had no idea what a gala day or nothing like that was, so he was pure, what the fuck is this, right? And we were down there, and like, we seen these two people walking about in Ghostbusters costumes, know what I mean? But they were like adults, but they were walking about like wanting Waynes to come up and get a picture with them, sort of thing, right?
I had a booze with one of them.
I don't know how, mate.
But previously,
up Queen's Park, there was like this cunt with a Ghostbusters uniform, and no, it was like, when it's roasting at Queen's Park, it's just like hundreds of cunts there, and we were sitting at the mad stair bit, and there was like this guy, and he was himself, and he was like walking down and sitting next to people and being like wanting them to talk about his thing, and obviously he came down and sat next to us, and we were like, fuck's this cunt doing? And then one of my pals started talking to him, and it ended up hanging about with us.
But we seen them that day, and we're like, we need to get an interview with them, and like, we were asking them like, how this is pretty high tech gear and that you've got, like, because they had a full get up, and they filled them mad backpack up with fucking marshmallow vape. So it was like, I've not even seen Ghostbusters, but in the movie, like, what is it, with a marshmallow thing or something?
It's just like, I think it's like that mad machine, a ghost when it's put in there, smells like a marshmallow.
But they like had it made for them and that, and I was interviewing them about the kit, but like, obviously you were asking us about like people we love being on the podcast. It's always like people who aren't famous that I love having on it, because it's like they're so like raw, and like we had a guy on who, he's fake Govan actually, Kev McGee. He lived in Tanzania for like a year there-ish, and he came back and he accidentally agreed to be the manager of a sweatshop, right? so fucking, even like somebody was like that, he's like a pure handyman. He does mad jobs fixing shit and doing bathrooms and whatever he can do, pure everything. And he was posting his work to Facebook, and this cunt messaged him, pure Armando Brocha or something, like a mad Spanish cunt. He was like, I want you to come and be like the manager in this textile firm or something. He still did a pure different name, and he was like, aye, alright, fuck it. And he came for the interview, and he went, and everything went well on that, and he walked out, he's like, I'll show you the the job, and he walked there and there was a full on Levi's sweatshop, mate, like making jeans all day, and like
10,000.
and he was in charge of like 5,000 guys, and he's like, mate, and they had like. He was like, aye, so I need you to fix these big it was like boilers. They had like rooms for a Rolls Royce boilers, not like huge things. And he was like, so I need you to be in charge of these, fixing them, that. And he's like, mate, I've never seen one of these in my life. And how he ended up in that situation, and he was like, I had this mad. It was just like a joke. He was like pure, this fucking Egyptian guy was a fucking wank and all that, and like it just kept going on. And I love hearing stories about like just people's mad experiences, like no necessarily pure. When I was on this show, you know, and the writing was superb, and me and Hingy were going over the script, and like I don't want to hear that shit. I want to hear pure. I mean, I was in a sweatshop. Know what I mean? This cunt asked me for a raise, and I couldn't give him it. Like all that. I prefer shit like that.
Because that's the shit that doesn't go on mainstream telling. That it's like they kind of mad stories, and I always like. I don't know if I've said this before. See with James English when he got Darren G on.
I love
like,
that.
Darren G, they kind of had a clue who he was, and they went on and just the shit he was saying. He's just his mad intense saying they shared these fucking rats and all that. Mad accent, cunts like this cunt's wild, and they done like free with him now. He's like kind of famous there.
I seen something about him the other day. What is it he's up to? You know,
well, maybe a beast, man.
Is he? I never
well, apparently, I don't know.
Is this new? Is this a new thing?
Well, it's new in the sense that like, he's meant to be like chatting to like 13-year-olds and all that, and it's one of the, because cunts are clicking, see that way they're screen recording it, then for the DMs they're clicking on his name and it's coming up his profile. But I always thought he was a bit of a weirdo. I remember seeing when they did TikTok lives, and he'd end up like, see, you know, it's like random, the country end up on it with, and it'd be like two young lasses, and they'd be like, oh, what's your names? But it was just a creepy element to it. Then you would see some like somebody like screen recorded it and put it on like a YouTube thing, like, Darren G, what you up to? And fucking as if what the fuck you doing? And it was like on like this TikTok live, and it was like a lassie, she looked about 16, 17, and he's freestyling rapping, but he's like, I'm gonna fucking grab your beer and fucking smoke in your neck.
Every time he ends up on with a bird, he's always pure, I'll come to your house with 14 roses with me shirt off, obviously I go to the gym. No, that like, it's mad seedy shit. He never just talks that lassie.
I know, that's wild.
You're literally every cunt seeing you, man. And I remember seeing a few stories, like, see, he always goes about on his bike everywhere, and cunt's gone like, he would start trying to chat up with 14-year-olds and their dads and that would chase him. You're like, right, you hear these stories all the time, not how true they, but and you're seeing that, and I think it's, you hear the story. Well, there's a pattern, and he's always calling cunts nonsense, and all.
I think, exactly, and I think
by that projection, that Paul Breach, you know what
as well, that I'm sure he talked about, I don't know if it was him or his brother, I'm sure on one of the James English ones he was talking about like how the mad people in the homes and that maybe abused him or something. That could be wrong, I'm sure it was. So like that obviously, so that I don't know, that mad trauma usually carries on to something later on. Not, I mean, you're never, he doesn't seem pure sane, but like there's always usually a mad darkness to the cunts that, I don't know, they're always hiding, they're trying to mask a mad persona.
If that happens to you, you're not going to be 100% sound, obviously.
The cunt's fucked, man, but you find out with a lot of these cunts, it's like, see if they have had some kind of abuse during their childhood, they either fucking, a lot of them can end up carrying that on, you know what I mean? And plus, so when you hear that story, and then you've seen it on the lives, and you're hearing things, there's too many coincidences. There's no smoke without fire in this case, man. So, which is a gutter, man, because I thought he was funny as fuck. I used to watch like Darren G out of context videos, man, like be pure funny, and just the shit he would do, and he's going about and he's arguing with cunts with hammers and boats and shit.
That's the funniest one I've ever seen him.
Come
on, you shit house.
Mate, that's a mad thing that's going to be like when cunts think about lockdown, they'll be like, mind that mad cunt, that mad scouser kicking about all the time on his bike. That'll be a pure.
He's still kicking it, man. So surely he's due his expose. Well, this is it starting to come, because mate, I was actually seeing it was Paul Ferris. He's
going to say Paul Breach.
Paul Ferris was like, basically says, right, I've got an expert here in telecommunications, or IT expert. He says, because that Darren G says that I was, somebody hacked my phone and messaged all these 13-year-olds and all that shit. And Paul Ferris put up on Twitter, like, I've got an IT expert that says he's happy to look into your phone, that, and obviously clear your name. And you never replied to that. You know what I mean? So
silence means you're guilty, doesn't it?
Exactly, bro, exactly. So as I said, where do you think you see Reilly's Gaff going? You're saying you're like to make it like a network and that branch off into other kind of different avenues. Do you always see yourself being a two-piece? Because right now it's the two of you. Is it always going to stay like that, do you think?
I think for the podcast, I think
that's always going to stick with that.
I think because like even like, see if it's weird though, because I was meant to start it myself, but see now it's just became like it's just became such a thing where when we try and do one without each other, it's like I've had Sean, you're on to co-host a lot of times, and I'm really good pals with Sean, and it goes well. It goes well. Like me and Sean have good partnering at each other, and it goes well. But there's always comments, but it's no the same without Jamie and all that, which is shite for him. Cause I'm like, he actually came up and fucking.
And he's always class on it.
And he's good. He's not even bad. But people are obviously so used to the dynamic that we have, where when it's
chemistry.
when it's no that, it's like, oh, like there's something missing. So I think for that podcast, but we'll probably go and do our own shit on the side ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
We've always said, like, when we'll get to a point that we both have our own set up in the Gaff, and we'll both have our own like YouTube channels, but we'll always do shit that, like, always do the podcast together, but then on our own channels we'll do wee other bits and bobs, because like the shit we want to kind of put out is near enough the same but just slightly different sometimes, innit? A wee bit. Like, because I kind of want to do like mad gaming things and all that, and mad gimpy shit like
Twitch.
I pure like to do that, know what I mean? But that will be like, I think the main thing's always got to be the podcast. Even with that thing I was saying about like going to try writing something, like that'll come second to the podcast.
The podcast is the main one at the top of the table.
I think it will be for like,
I feel like we pure as well, like
forever.
Forever. I feel like when we do the podcast and all, like Jamie can, because we've done it for so long, like if I'm talking to a guest, he's able to tell like, fuck, Evan's like maybe does like, I need to maybe add something to this, or like he can tell maybe I've no got anything to move on to, or like we're good at like reading each other, like what direction we're going and knowing when to jump in with each other. So if we were to do it on our own now, it would just feel weird, I think, wouldn't it?
Well, your mum dad's splitting up, innit, man?
I know,
mate, for some cunts.
Have you ever thought about doing a live show?
We've been talking about that, man.
More recently, it's kind of, we've been talking about it a lot.
Because we were always like, we didn't want to jump into it too soon in terms of like just doing it because we're like, oh, we should be doing this, know what I mean? Like, oh, this is the natural progression, but we're like, we don't even have an actual plan for it, or like, we don't know how it would go. But it's definitely something we want to do, like 100%. We've had messages about it and that, like, and when we post, like, what do you want to see for Reilly's Gaff in the future, it's always like a few people saying, oh, live show, Reilly's Gaff, live podcast and shit. So I think it's more it's not even a case of like, will it happen? It's more in terms of like when and like when we, like, how we plan it and shit, and like what it's going to be like.
Because I always used to say, like, I want our live shows to be like a mad event, like, so it's like a mad thing that cunts are like no like a mad, like we always joke about, like mad Penn and Teller or something, no like a mad wild magic show or something, but just something that's like a bit interactive and a bit like just mad weird games and all that, and just a fun thing instead of just sitting down and talking.
We've got like a lot of pals I know that are like DJs or rappers, like Benny T obviously done our intro tune, and
like comedians
and like comedians. So we would want to, like, obviously I think the first few would be like us just finding our feet wet and getting used to being on a stage and doing one, but we would want it to maybe progress into like, you would come and like Big Miz would be playing a bit before it, like a set, and then we would come on for like an hour, and then maybe Jamie's pal Mick, who's like trying to like become a DJ and try to get noticed, like he'd do maybe half an hour, and then like after it, like we'd get like a few people on stage, and like we'd turn it into a sort of whole event rather than just about us. Do you know what I mean?
But like, so that was my, like, I was saying I want that to be like the first thing we do. That's what I want us to do. Like, we're not doing a live show until that happens. But then we were talking with our editor Jamie, and he was saying like, if you just cut it down to basics for the first like one or two and that, and just get used to it, like people will come and it will still be good. Like, you don't need it to be pure extravagant.
I think you don't want to like oversaturate it with like, oh, and then they're playing, and then it's like you're almost trying to like have too much of a mad safety net, like pure, oh, we're here, but like come for them and all, like you want to like establish your mad audience first, and then be like, right, we'll add shit to it, rather than just hitting it everything in one go for the first one, sort of.
I know, of course. See, would it be like, say, like a live deep fried, or would you get a guest or something involved?
That would be good, I think.
That's the thing, like, and we could do both, I suppose, or we could do half and half. Like, we could do the first hour as, you know, 45 is a podcast with somebody, and then it's a deep fried. It's just, that's the stage we're at in terms of like, how do we make this as good as possible, basically, like, because obviously we do have a few different styles and types of podcasts, so it's like, what would be the best one to translate to a live audience? Like, it would be great to do like a deep fried live and get a pure some like scientist on who knows about this theory, do you know what I mean? It's obviously hard to do that, but
we'll just pure slag them.
I'll slaughter it. You're a mad gimp, mate. Imagine even know all that. Some's not that. No, but I think that'd be good, but it would need to be the right guest, and so it's definitely coming. It's just kind of
when and where. And
So
shit.
is it more just the idea's been spoken about? There's no actual structure or plans in place. There's no kind of like possible dates involved.
no, really a date. No,
I think this year defo, but like
I think maybe we're looking towards maybe the end of this year or something. Just get the podcast going again and get a good few guests on and get us back up and running, and then
we might do like a like end of summer closing parties and that. Like, I'd be fun that like do a season doing the dry gate or something.
we'll see what happens.
So what's the other plans for the future? We've kind of spoke about it a lot, man, but is there anything on the horizon right now that you can say for sure? Or just anything in your minds?
We're planning on a new thing for a Patreon where people can like call into us live and like do a video call with us and like ask us questions, and like so it's like a more interactive thing. So we want to keep that Patreon thing as like a mad way where
You can see how that would go cunts for your my phone now.
I know that.
Cunts slaughter, you know.
I know
that would be class, man.
I know that would be like
Cunts, imagine cunts just dancing to get their dick out and all that.
I know, mate. Like, but it'd be good because
I'll be able to screenshot that. Oh,
if it was on Patreon, like kind of ate and goes. But if we done it in YouTube, I think if we just posted it on YouTube to everybody and opened it up to everybody, that's when you're going to just get that. You know what I mean? People are like, like people go in live like Kaz Milligan and slaughter them and all that. They shit like that. You know what I mean? So I think it would be only on our Patreon, and then like we could get people like our new editor. He's defo up for like trying to like push mad weird concepts and like new shit. And like
he's a pure fan and all. Like, this is what I would want to see. So we're pure listening to his ideas.
And it's defo helped because it has helped us grow in the last sort of month or two. It's as we say with the TikTok clips, man. Like the way he's edited them, it's just made it.
He's king.
It's really good, man. See, especially the way the effects he's done. It just kind of. It tells the story more. See, I think I kind of mind if you're talking about a story, if it's full of eckies or been stoned to your wee cousin at McDonald's. Then it was like making the camera shake and all. Just doing shit like that, and it pure ad state, man. It pure grips you.
Keeps you engaged and all. Like, instead of it just being like a still every like 30 seconds and then switching camera or whatever, it's like he's saying something, then a visual come up, then it'll zoom in, then it'll zoom out. It's like keeping your brain engaged, so that obviously keeps people watching it. And what he started doing is like looping them, I know, so we put the end
at the start.
Mate, that was clever as fuck.
I like that. I
don't know how he does it, mate. He's fucking clever.
I know,
but
mate.
Another thing, we've got like new merch coming out soon, I know.
Because we had merch with like it's like a company. It was like a company who make Club Shop Direct, it is. They make merch for like say like junior football teams, because obviously nobody's going to make that, but they do have fans, so there's a mad gap in a market sort of thing. So they'll have a deal with like Cambuslang Rangers or something. They'll be like, look, we'll make you merch, we'll take 70%, we'll give you 30% of the product, and we'll deal with everything sort of thing. So it was the same sort of model for us, and they came to us. I think the guy who owns its son watched us, and he was like, you should ask them if they want merch, and we done it like that. But Jamie's like class at drawing, mate, like pure. He designed every design for our hoodies and that, like drew them, and then they got printed, and it was all his drawings. So we wanted to sort of move it away from that and like kind of try and turn it into an actual brand. Like, so like the merch we make is like no really merch, it's like nobody would really know it was for a podcast. It's just us making a sort of clothing brand that goes along with us.
It just fits the themes kind of thing. So we're kind of in the middle of kind of transitioning into doing everything for ourselves and that. But so that'll be coming out soon. That was just off the top of my head there. Something else that
good stuff, man. Excited to see it, mate. Excited to see it, man. It's classic.
We'll get you a hoodie in that.
Definitely.
Get your hoodie sorted.
Man, I'm just kicking with my balls out.
What an advert that is, bro. On camera.
When all's said and done, what do you want your legacy to reflect?
Power.
Inequality. No, I want us and even you as well. Like, I want us to all have a mad network of like going on each other's and helping each other. And I want us all to like push each other up the way, do you know what I mean, and help each other out. And cause it's easy to like look at other people's and go, oh, they've done that and they've got this many subscribers, and we fuck, like we need to make our thumbnails like that. But you could just like appreciate everybody, and we'll all grow together. And I think I want us to be the sort of generation of podcasts that like lead the mad charge for other wee guys that sit about their pals and talk shite and know they're quite funny, and they're like, fuck it, we could do that. I mean, we basically talk like Fivo, we basically talk like fucking Evan and Jamie on their podcast and give people belief that they can do it and all. So
I want every cunt to have a mad fair shot at it and all, like, know how that way, like, I feel like the new, it's like everything that we do, we don't need to be like as we were talking about the mad old media, we don't need like their platform anymore because we've got our own. So I just want everybody to be able to fucking thrive on their own. Know what I mean?
Aye.
Because it's lacked in Scotland. I think like original creativity in a way.
Defo's country, like, we're kind of background all kind of like working class in that, man, because right up until probably fucking our grades group, we've been raised to right, go and get a good job and settle down.
Just survive. Like, it's no like thrive. It's just get what you need to survive and just be happy with that. And it's like, no, man. Like, we want to I always think about like every decision I make is based on like when I'm actually about to die. What am I going to think about this decision, or what am I going to think about what I'd done at this situation? And when the podcast started taking off a bit, I was like, there needs to be something in your life you put 100% into. Like, you need to, and even when it's shite, you need to stick with it. And I feel like before the podcast, anything I'd done like that, like even uni, although there was a couple of circumstances around that, I'd always start something and it'd be going well, and I'd be like, I don't know about this, and patch it. And so I was like, this is the thing that I need to, even when it's shite, I need to still believe in it and keep going. So I totally,
I feel you. I'm of the same mind, man. Because it's not until I started doing stuff like this, man, I usually probably feel the same as well. Probably like up until I started releasing content and that kind of thing, I felt I was in limbo. I would like something and I'd be like, do I like this, or do I just want to get good at this so I've got something to say this is me? Because I had nothing to show for all my time in the earth. And now I'm at the point I'm like, I couldn't give this up now. This is a part of my life. I have to imagine you feel the exact same.
It's like
you feel an attachment to it.
You find your purpose, find your meaning.
That's like,
I've been talking shit for fuck all for years.
Not monetized, man.
I know, man.
But
you know, free content. I know, it's definitely, it's a great thing, man. And plus, the two is we get the same ideas in terms of what we want to do. Maybe our content's different, maybe the kind of direction we want to take it, but the message, the meaning we're trying to send out to like kind of the younger generation, like, no, you can actually create stuff, you can get somewhere in life just being yourself. You don't need to mold yourself.
Don't need to water yourself down, or make sure you don't say fucking this word so that you don't, so you can get on a platform like BBC, or like you make that video on the social, or like, do you know what I mean? It's just because I feel like that's why people like the both of our podcasts. It's like they're like, they fucking talk like us. Do you know what I mean? They talk the way we talk and they don't water it down.
Familiarity.
And
that's exactly that.
It's like makes us relatable for people, and it gives especially when if we're both doing well and getting good views, and it's like the more that grows, the more people are like, somebody like me can do that. You know what I mean? And they don't need to water themselves down.
Exactly, you can just be yourself. Plus, as well as like, we kind of push the kind of scheme life. We're not trying to go at right, this is a podcast, but we can't talk about taking eckies and smoking weed and all that shit, because that's part of our story. And that's because fucking how many cunts do you know have never took drugs?
It's weirder if you don't. You've never done it. You're like, how what's wrong with you? Something happened to you, mate. You know what I mean? Like, it's weirder. Like, I always talk about that, about like how it's. I've come out. I like, say if I've been out and I've pure needed a shite, I've like done a shite and come out the cubicle pure as if like I done a patsy, like, so people don't actually.
It's embarrassing to girl and do that shit.
Exactly. So that just shows how much it's in the culture. And you can. That was our thing, because when we started it, we're like, do we want to talk about it? Can we talk about all this? And we're like, this is the truth. This is what really happens. And I think it has been missing, like, people just being honest about what they've done, because everybody fucking does it. So people love hearing stories about it. They go, fucking no way they're actually talking about that. So
I just had to get past like my gran watching it and that, mate. I had to like fucking just pull off my gran phoned my fucking sister once after an episode. She watches it all the time, mate, right? Obviously talk about mad shit. She phoned my sister and does Jamie doesn't take drugs, does he? She's like, no, he's just lying. He's just trying to show up.
Trying to look cool for him.
Doesn't watch this one. I need to edit that out. He's just lying about lying. He's a liar.
It's
a big wave, innit?
End up getting cancelled, man, because your granny thinks you don't take drugs. But I know, but it's been really good having you on, man, because as I say, we're for the same kind of backgrounds, we're pushing the same message as well, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And plus as well, see, because we date similar stuff, you're almost, I hate to say the competition, but see when I seen what you was doing your podcast, because I was getting laxy like, I'm the only cunt doing this kind of thing, so I could take my foot off the gas, but then I was like, fuck, they're actually starting to numbers, so I get the finger it.
Watching it get up like,
I think it's kind of, it lights a fire. I believe competition creates innovation. It lights a fire under your ass. You're like, right, I've got somebody that's kind of, not, I mean, if I stopped doing it, everybody that watches mine will probably, because that's the next best thing, that's getting people their scheme fix.
Exactly.
It's like, scheme fix, that's good,
exactly.
mate. They trademark that.
Like you put one out, then we put one out, and they're like, I've already had my fix, man. That's the pure thoughts you had, man. But I think it is, like, it is good for us to just cross over and do things, because the reality is, like, even if everybody's looking at other podcasts that are doing a similar thing, and you're thinking, like, where do we fall in this? It's almost like how it's you compare yourself, but it's so that you're like, where are we in this ladder of things? Where are we in this table?
If you didn't do that, you'd get lost, and you wouldn't be like, you do need to obviously look at other people and say, like, what are we doing here and that. But at the same time, there's probably about 1 million cunts in Scotland that are just like us, so there's plenty of cunts plenty of views to go around, boys.
Exactly. I think it's too easy to get caught in that mindset of like, oh fuck, like they're watching that, like they'll not watch mine. But the reality is that everybody's going to, if they like it, they like it. You know what I mean? They're going to watch it.
Well, that's the thing, mate. A lot of it comes down to they're not watching it because of the content or the guest. They're watching it because of you, the presenter, the host, because you're bringing something unique. It's not. I mean, we can't be each other. I can only be me. You can only be you. We can get the same guests on. We can maybe do a podcast, but the same thing. But we can't be each other. So that is what people look from. That familiarity.
Authenticity again, and it just being authentic to yourself. And then people will enjoy it.
Just be true to yourself, man. Be organic. Don't think about it too much, and the rest will come naturally.
Beautiful, baby.
Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Look forward to coming to Reilly's, Gaff.
Aye, that's coming soon too. It's Big Fivo.
He's what to say to Cam. He's what to promote before you go.
Patreon.com.
Watch Reilly's Gaff.
Aye, Reilly's. If you want to go watch the podcast, Reilly's Gaff on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple, and if you want an extra episode a month or the episodes ads free, go to patreon.com/Reilly's Gaff, baby.
Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe.
Aye. And subscribe and don't get right.
Cheers, trips.